Good morning. I would like to open today's meeting and welcome everyone in the gallery, as well as those joining us via the live stream. I invite you to stand as Councillor Suarez acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. The Sunshine Coast Council acknowledge the Cubby Cubby peoples and the Yinabara peoples whose lands and waters we all now share. The traditional owners' unique values and ancient and enduring cultures deepen and enrich the life of our communities. And the reason we acknowledge that is because this is our country's history. The Sunshine Coast has been a place of celebration, abundance, connection and kinship for thousands of years, and we commit to working together in partnership with traditional owners to continue these practices and support self-determination through economic and community development. We have significant partnerships with our First Nations people in this region, but we can always do more. Truth-telling is a significant part of our journey, and legacy issues resulting from colonisation are still experienced by traditional owners and First Nations people. We are committed to better understanding the collective history of the Sunshine Coast traditional owners and the experiences of First Nations people. We recognise our shared history and will continue to work together to provide a foundation for building a shared future with Cubby Cubby people and Yinabara people. We pay our respect to the traditional owners of the Sunshine Coast and to their elders past and present, and acknowledge the important role First Nations peoples continue to play within the Sunshine Coast community. Together, we are all stronger.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. If you're able, please remain upstanding at this time. We do have some visitors we are very pleased to welcome from the Thai community of the Sunshine Coast Association, and I invite Venerable Arnon Sri Mongkalo and Venerable Anuson Somrak to provide us with a blessing.
Good morning, Councillor and everyone. I am apologize. My English is not the best. I hope you can understand. Dear Councillor, my name is Pra Anuson Somrak. I came from Wat Pa Apipunyo Temple in Palmwood. We moved to the Sunshine Coast from Gympie about 4 months ago. I am a Buddhist missionary from Thailand. This month is the anniversary of the passing of Venerable Ajahn Mun. So on this occasion, I would like to recall his remarkable virtue in 2021. UNESCO recognized the virtue of Venerable Ajahn Mun as an outstanding figure in the field of peace. He is a great monk of the Lord Buddha. He dedicated to teaching the practice of meditation and has even spread his teaching to people all over the world. When anyone had put his teaching into practice, he or she will find peace and find a way to reduce their inner agitation, resulting in a new path in life, a sense of peace leading to sustainable peace in the world. An example of his teaching is, goodness without harm is the best. May happiness and well-being be with all of you. May the councillor, when they make decisions for the community, I wish you a successful meeting resulting in benefit to the community. Thank you so much for having me. Peace be with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That message of peace is very welcome, and your English was very good. Thank you so much. Now, please remain upstanding as the CEO acknowledges the recent passing of Council employee Karen Magdalinsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, good morning, everyone. Today we honour and remember a remarkable colleague and a dedicated professional, Karen Magdalinsky. Karen was not just a part of our organisation, she was an integral part of the library profession on the Sunshine Coast. Born and raised in Penona, Karen's roots in this region ran deep. Her connection to the community was not only personal but also professional. Karen began her journey with Noosa Library in 1976 as a library officer, and over the years she pursued her professional qualifications with determination, all while raising a family and building a life filled with purpose. Her early work was instrumental when libraries first transitioned to digital cataloguing. It was Karen who painstakingly entered in every record into our very first computer system, laying the foundations for the modern accessible library service offered today. In 2007, Karen took on a secondment with the Maroochy Library Service and post-amalgamation remained with Sunshine Coast Library Service. It was a perfect fit, both professionally and personally. Karen's technical expertise was second to none. She was the go-to person for anything catalogue related, and her knowledge of our local history was encyclopedic. She was often called upon to verify historical information, and she did so with care and precision. Her passion for genealogy was well known and reflected her deep respect for heritage and storytelling. But Karen's impact went beyond her technical skills. She was a generous mentor and gave freely of her time and knowledge, often arriving early and staying late. Karen's love for her work was evident in everything. Her meticulous attention to detail touched every corner of our service. Karen will be deeply missed, not only by those who had the privilege of working alongside her, but also by her beloved family, Blake and Stephen. On behalf of the entire organisation, I extend our deepest condolences to Karen's family and friends. Her legacy will live on in the work she loved, the people she mentored, and the community she served. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Please take your seats. Moving on to record of attendance, and we are all in attendance here today. So moving to item 4, which is the receipt and confirmation of minutes. Would someone please move the receipt and confirmation from the ordinary meeting held on 16 October 2025, Councillor Bunnag, and seconded Councillor Burns. All those in favour? And the motion is carried unanimously. There is no mayoral minute today, so moving on to inform of conflict of interests. Councillors, I remind you of the requirements of the Local Government Act 2009, which sets out how councillors' conflicts of interests are managed for local government matters. These requirements apply to how we deal with such matters at this meeting. Should you have a conflict of interest in relation to an agenda item, please raise it at the commencement of that item. We move now to presentations, and we have 2 awards to acknowledge today. Councillor Bunnag, you have an award to acknowledge first. Good morning.
Swati Cup, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak and present an outstanding commendation to our council officers. This presentation is to acknowledge an award from the Planning Institute of Australia. The 2025 Queensland Awards for Planning Excellence were held last week, and it is an absolute pleasure to share with the community and council that for the Community Wellbeing and Diversity category, the Sunshine Coast Council Marcoola Affordable Housing Project received a commendation award. The Sunshine Coast Council Marcoola Affordable Housing Project is an outstanding example of socially responsible and innovative local government leadership. Supported by the Queensland Government's $2 billion Housing Investment Fund, this project delivered 22 high-quality modular homes across 11 council-owned sites, directly addressing the housing affordability challenges that we know so many low-income key workers in our industries face. We leveraged underutilised council land that had sat vacant since 1995, and by adopting the modular construction, council addressed and demonstrated how timely, cost-effective and sustainable housing can be delivered with minimal disruption to the community. This is more than a housing initiative. The project strengthens community resilience by ensuring essential workers have secure, affordable and well-designed homes integrated seamlessly into existing neighbourhoods. Its use of dual occupancy, configuration, income-based rent models and collaborative governance sets a powerful precedent for other councils to follow. And I might just digress from what's actually been written down here and say how incredibly inspired and proud this organisation is of the officers who have delivered this project. This was a project that was driven by our officers, Wendy, Lee, Tony, Chris, and Deb Robinson, who doesn't want to be acknowledged but will be getting acknowledged. And when it says this is more than just a demonstration of, responsible housing being delivered, you only have to take a drive around the streets of Marcoola and see these homes to actually see the difference that it's made in transforming that unutilised land into not just housing but homes. You see the work boots on the front porch. You see the little pot plants that have been decorated and spread around the home. And my personal favourite touch this morning, seeing the little Christmas characters that make their way along one of the particular homes. It is such a nice thing to see in our community, and as an organisation we are so proud of the work that our officers have done in driving this. So to Chris, to Wendy, to Tony, to Lee and to Deb, this is your award. Congratulations and thank you very much.
He was fine. He was very appreciative. So John wanted you to
Taking a photo.
Councillor Bunnag, would you like to move a motion to receive this award, to receipt it? Thank you, great. A seconder? Councillor Suarez, seconded. Thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Law, you have an award to present this morning.
This morning,
Getting ahead of myself, yeah.
Yes, we are only just beginning. Good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors. I'm also have an award from the Planning Institute of Australia for the 2025 Queensland Awards for Planning Excellence. And this is in relation to the Mount Ninderry Draft Landscape Plan. This received a commendation in the Planning with Country category at the 2025 Queensland Awards for the Planning Excellence, which happened, as you've just heard, on Friday evening. It's awarded by the Planning Institute of Australia, and this highly competitive award recognises planning excellence of the Sunshine Coast Council. The Council's genuine and innovative co-design methods that have fostered strong partnerships and enabled meaningful ongoing stewardship by Cubby Cubby peoples of the iconic coastal landmark and the protected area of Mount Ninderry. By integrating traditional knowledge and aspirations of the Cubby Cubby peoples with contemporary planning processes, the project sets a valuable example of the culturally informed environmental management and community engagement process. The project was led by Council's Environmental Operations Branch in collaboration with Design and Placemaking, and it demonstrates what we can achieve across the group, across the organisation and across the whole community when we work together. I'm very pleased to present the Commendation Award to Jacqueline Nolan and Scott Howarth, who are here today to present both the Environmental Operations team and the Design and Placemaking Services, respectively. Congratulations to the work that you have done, and especially I want to focus on that collaboration with the community so that the traditional values and customs and knowledge from First Nations people can come through within this planning process. Thank you very much and very well done.
Thank you, team. Councillor Law, you'd like to move the motion for
Yes, I would.
receipt?
Thank you.
Yes, and a seconder. Councillor Suarez, thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on now to item 8.1, the Sunshine Coast Annual Reporting, and we welcome Luke Flanagan to introduce this item to us. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors and members of our community, either in the gallery today or watching online. This report today presents to you the Sunshine Coast Annual Report for the financial year 2024-25, as well as the 3 regional strategy annual reports covering the community strategy, the environment and livability strategy, and the regional economic development strategy. Collectively, these reports provide a focus on how Council is connecting our long, medium and short-term planning and monitoring progress to support us to adapt along the way. I'll start to provide an overview of the Sunshine Coast Council Annual Report. This report is a legislative requirement and has been prepared in full accordance with the Local Government Act 2009 and the Local Government Regulations 2012. That means all councils in Queensland are required to prepare an annual report for each financial year, and that report contains details of their performance and activity over the period. The annual report includes details of how we have progressed the corporate plan goals and the associated progress indicators over the year, the delivery of the operational plan for the 24-25 year with key achievements, and governance disclosures. Note that the financial statements that will be presented to Council separately will also form part of the final published annual report. This year, Council has made steps to improve its reporting approach by consolidating 7 individual reports to Council into one report. This provides our community with a more comprehensive and integrated view of how we are delivering for the region. The Sunshine Coast Annual Report delivers and now incorporates information on 3 levies: the Arts and Heritage Levy, the Environment Levy and the Transport Levy. In addition, Council has included attachments for the 3 regional strategies, going beyond our legislative requirement and providing greater information to our community in one spot around how we are progressing our strategic initiatives. I will now invite CEO John Baker to provide an overview for the financial year with some highlights on key performance.
Thank you, Luke. And good morning, councillors and the gallery and all those online. It's my real pleasure to present this report this morning, and I really want to spend a little bit of time reflecting on some of the achievements over the last year. Of the 29 corporate plan progress indicators that are used to measure progress towards achieving that overarching goal, our corporate plan, which is 2024 to 2028, 20 are on target and 9 are behind target. We achieved 87% of our operational plan for 24-25 activities, including 11 of the 86 activities that have not met expected timeframes or budget requirements due to a range of influencing factors, some outside of Council's control, such as adverse weather conditions. Council is proactively managing and monitoring delivery of commitments that have not been fully met, and we've provided targeted attention to ensure momentum continues and that Council can make informed decisions where they're necessary. A noteworthy mention was the delivery of the Capital Works programme, which achieved 94% completion. This was achieved despite the region being exposed to an extended period of wet weather that had impacted a whole range of projects, both through the Council but also within the market, including, of course, the ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. Some examples of the projects that were still able to progress were, of course, the Library Plus at Caloundra, our wonderful new library, and so much more. Honey Farm Road Sport and Recreation Precinct, and of course the Nambour landfill expansion as well. So this brings to an end this corporate plan for 24 to 28, with our new corporate plan 25 to 30, adopted in February, establishing new priorities for the next 5 years to meet the needs of our community and our growing region. Next, I'm going to provide an overview of the Council's 3 regional strategies. The first, the community strategy. Under this, we've worked to support and to embrace our community's health and well-being, to activate local places and spaces, and to foster an inclusive, connected, and resilient community, while, of course, continuing to celebrate cultural heritage and the arts. Some of the key outcomes of this strategy included advancing to a stretch reconciliation action plan, strengthening partnerships with traditional custodians and First Nations community stakeholders, driving tangible social outcomes, while continuing, of course, to ensure that we are as inclusive as possible and that we value First Nation cultures. Continuation of the lived experience inclusion project, Street Up, to drive meaningful change regarding homelessness. Completion of a $14 million Kawana Aquatic Centre upgrade, should say aquatic there, not aquatic. Awarded more than $5.6 million across 1,152 grants, supporting community groups to continue delivering the programmes, events and activities that help our community thrive. We've hosted and engaged with 85 young people at the Thriving Futures Coast Youth Forum in collaboration with the Young Leaders Academy. Those are just some of the achievements through the community strategy. Next, I'd like to talk briefly to the environment and livability strategy. So much is contained within the outcomes of this strategy. The environment and livability strategy, of course, focuses on preservation and enhancement of the natural environment and the livability of the region, enabling a good quality of life for all our residents and supporting a strong economy in an accessible and well-connected built environment. Some key outcomes for this year: the critical infrastructure failure project was completed, focusing on understanding and reducing cascading climate risks on Council's services associated with failing critical infrastructure. How do we protect ourselves? Over 200 hectares of land were secured for conservation and recreation purposes, expanding our environmental reserve estate and securing recreation parks for emerging communities. Our first Sunshine Coast Marine BioBlitz event, showcasing community-driven conservation, scientific exploration, arts and culture for marine enthusiasts. In addition, 3,280 new trees were planted across urban areas to enhance canopy cover and cool local streets. As part of implementing the Sunshine Coast Street Master Plan. Just a few snippets of the achievements within that strategy. And now the Regional Economic Development Strategy. This encourages a more sustainable and equitable future economy by attracting investment and supporting local businesses to innovate and to grow and enable diverse employment opportunities. It acts as a mechanism for change, guiding the future evolution and transformation of the economy over time. Key outcomes include the expert advice that was provided and the support that was provided to 8,450 businesses. Through the major events sponsorship programme, 57 major events generated an economic impact of over $106 million in direct economic return, while nearly 60,000 community members enjoyed place activation events across a range of different areas, including Marcoola, Caloundra and Nambour. Our Invest Sunshine Coast campaigns generated 914 new leads, contributing an estimated $161 million in economic impact, direct and indirect, and of course creating 564 new jobs. Councillors, it's my pleasure to put the recommendations in front of you today. Madam Mayor, members of the community and councillors, I present the comprehensive annual report that not only meets our statutory requirements, it also provides a clear view of what your levies are delivering and how our region's community, environment and economy are advancing to support our vision as Australia's most sustainable region. Thank you. I'd now like to hand over to Council for comment.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillors, I will move this motion, and could I have a seconder? Councillor Suarez. Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Good morning, councillors, directors, staff and members of our community here with us today and those online. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share how we've been working together to build a more connected, livable and thriving Sunshine Coast. Being Mayor of this incredible region is a true honour, and presenting our second annual report comes with enormous pride because this annual report covers the first full year of this term of council. At the heart of our work is connection and care of our region and the people we serve. I don't say this lightly. My fellow councillors and I are out and about, listening to our community, helping us stay grounded in what matters most. Every initiative, every investment, every decision we make is guided by delivering real value for our region and the people we serve. Today is an opportunity to reflect on what we've achieved, talk about our challenges, and envision a future that the people of the Sunshine Coast aspire to achieve. The CEO has already listed some projects and achievements across our strategies. The Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games, alongside our region's strong population growth, present both challenges and opportunities. We know this comes with increased demand for infrastructure, housing, services and transport, and Council is actively planning for these challenges, but we can't solve them by ourselves. We are working with community, industry and other tiers of government to respond for our community today while also positioning the region for the future. I can say our progress over the past financial year has contributed to just that. We were able to coordinate the first mayoral roundtable on transport infrastructure, which brought together local members from council, the state government and federal parliament, 3 levels in the same room for the first time in years. As a community, we were drawn together. Collectively, we prepared and then responded to Tropical Cyclone Alfred. We saw the very best in our community, residents helping others when it really mattered. And we saw our emergency services and agencies working together. led by the brilliant council teams. My thanks to you all. This comes across as business as usual. There is no strategy on disaster management. But when Mother Nature unleashes her fury, we come together in the best way possible. And I'm very grateful to our council teams for that. We welcomed our new CEO, John Baker, and later our new Chief Financial Officer, Keith Parsons. We promised and are delivering increased accountability, fiscal management and openness. Council, with the CEO, executive and managers, are driving change based on the premise of serving our community. Whether it's protecting our foreshores, building our roads, maintaining our parks, supporting small business or planning our future. We have progressed 2 temporary planning instruments to guide our growth and encourage 5-star accommodation. We have been bold. Over the past year, levies have enabled us to deliver targeted projects. The Environment Levy funded the acquisition of 4 new properties. The Arts and Heritage Levy supported a range of key initiatives, including providing funding of $450,000 to 26 arts and heritage groups and events in our community. The Transport Levy continues to fund key projects to support the region's transport needs today and into the future, with a focus on trialling new bus services, improving the safety of our most vulnerable pedestrians, reducing our reliance on cars through our Think Change and Trial Ride Score active schools programs, and increasing connectivity and accessibility to bus stops. We've made strong progress across a range of priority areas. Here are some of those achievements. Unveiling the unique affordable housing project at Marcoola, aimed at keeping low-income key workers in our community, as we've heard earlier today from Councillor Bunnag. Council delivered this project with support from the Queensland Government $2 billion Housing Investment Fund. Securing $152 million in key grant funding. It is for key infrastructure and economic development projects across the Sunshine Coast. And that includes the state's Residential Activation Fund, which will totally power creating housing in Maroochy sooner. The support for 57 major events, as we've heard, with an estimated economic return of $106 million into our local economy. Securing support for Olympic and Paralympic venues, an arena, a public transport system. We are working with the state government on delivering an outstanding legacy from the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. That legacy for our community is what that is all about. This year, we adopted a corporate plan, a new one, which reflects what our community told us matters most. The plan is already shaping what we do. The 2025-26 budget and operational plan, turning goals into real actions on the ground. Our corporate plan will continue to guide our decisions and keep us focused on delivering what matters most to our community, not just this year, but over the next 5 years. We are building a future that is not only sustainable, but also connected, livable and thriving. A full strategy of opportunity for all, for everyone in our community. The Sunshine Coast is not just a place, it's a feeling. It's a lifestyle that deserves protecting. It's an extraordinary environment that must be maintained and enhanced, and it's a group of people who feel heard and empowered with a future that is bright. And that is what this annual report demonstrates is our vision for the Sunshine Coast. To our community, thank you for your trust, passion and partnership. Thank you to our officers and executive for your hard work in realising these strategies and plans. And thank you to my councillor colleagues, each one of you. I look forward to continuing this journey with you all.
Mooloolaba TAFE Forward Fest as well in May 2025. This year was a wonderful opportunity to promote testing tech in paradise and all our digital businesses. And as well as MEF, our Manufacturing Excellence Forum, they do an amazing job behind the scenes supporting our economies. And just this past 12 months, obviously they've hosted over 55 events that attracted more than 4,500 attendees. And they supported businesses that were able to successfully achieve over $7 million in grant funding. That's an incredible outcome for a non-for-profit group that continues to struggle, and to this day, we need to support MEF. They are the leaders in that area of advanced manufacturing and supporting our businesses that are going to grow us and provide jobs for the next generation. But overall, thank you for the report, Luke. Wonderful work behind the scenes. I know there's lots of other things here. I'm sure my other fellow councillors, there's a few lights on here this morning, will rise to compliment you, but I'll rise and look forward to supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll use my financial hat as usual. Very pleasing to see in the last year what has been achieved. Our capital works program achieved 94% completion despite the bad weather and Cyclone Alfred and all the rest of it. That was a great result from outside crews and our workers in very trying circumstances. Council secured more than $152 million in grant funding. It's very important we pursue those each year to offset our expenditure and deliver for our community. The key things that were achieved in that are $82.8 million through the Queensland Government's Residential Activation Fund for the Maroochy City Centre East Trunk infrastructure. Each time we get these grants, that's money we don't have to come up with and deliver those things. $19.9 million and $13.6 million through the Australian Government's Growing Regions Fund for the First Avenue Streetscape and the Honey Farm Road Sport and Recreation Precinct. Valuable infrastructure for our community going into the future. Council also awarded 1,152 community grants, distributing more than $5.6 million to support community initiatives. That's our community groups and delivering in the community. More than 6.6 million beachgoers attended Sunshine Coast beaches, with 552 rescues performed by our lifeguards. That's major for our tourism industry to have safe beaches and the tourists coming here feeling safe. Council's landfill renewable energy facility generated 6,106 megawatt hours of electricity. That's turning waste into a valuable product and offsetting our costs. Council protected and maintained 8,423 hectares of environmental reserves. That's a major achievement. That's a lot of reserves. And this one I'd like to make comment on. When we do have the bad weather and our contractors and crews have a job getting out on the parks because of the wetness, you put 3 tonne and a half to 3 tonne of machinery on a wet park, it doesn't do much good and actually makes a mess of the park. And residents ring up concerned that their park's not being mowed as regularly as it used to. And keep in mind, we have 2,159 parks and open spaces to maintain, with 18,120 hectares of mowing sites. So when the bad weather makes it hard for a crews to get on there, you've got to have some understanding that we can get to it when we can, but there's no use making a mess of the park and getting a further cost from the damage done by trying to go in too early. We also have 5,113 hectares of garden beds. And when you get that weather, you get the weed growth and you've got to prune it and everything, so it does take a bit of getting to. So I ask people to be understanding of the work crews in those difficult times getting to those things, but they do their best. Our Sunshine Coast holiday parks have generated $22.8 million in revenue. Very positive revenue earner for this council, especially in this tough economic climate, with an average of 62% occupancy. We've also maintained 3,192 kilometres of sealed and unsealed roads and 1,578 kilometres of pathways. And that adverse weather affects roads as well. You get potholes and the repair jobs out there. And again, the crews have got to get to it when they can. And when you get those events, you get more potholes and things to look at and work on. So it takes them longer to get around. You've got to be understanding. And importantly, 102% of council's electricity consumption was offset by the Sunshine Coast solar farm. That's more our total council's electricity usage. So we're leading the way and being renewable in our energy thing there. So I think council's really showing the way. Our community can be very confident in what we're doing and proud of what we're doing. And I commend this report to council because it's good reading, and a lot of people do not take into account just what council is doing across a whole range of things. And I think sometimes criticisms of council are unfounded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Dixon.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, and I'll just confirm that this is the appropriate time to talk a little bit about the public transport levy and the annual report. And I do so with confidence from my colleague, Councillor Winston Johnson. He's been very much a part of the new portfolio structure, and we're certainly working together, and I'd like to speak on behalf of us today. In fact, before I do that, I'd also like to acknowledge Councillor David Law and Councillor Taylor Bunag for their custodianship of the portfolio. In fact, I thought they did a fantastic job as portfolio councillors, and they left some really big shoes to fill because I know how hard they've worked, and I've actually seen the things they've achieved, not only across the Sunshine Coast, but in their own electorates, which is fantastic. And I think that's all about what a good portfolio councillor should stand for. So I will congratulate them. This is an interesting one because those who will remember me, I've actually been a bit antagonistic about the public transport levy over time. I'll admit it, first to admit it. I have found it very difficult to see a lot of benefit for Division 6, and I've said that at many, many budget meetings. But it's different when you're physically and intimately involved in the actual understanding of the levy and working with the staff, because you start to gain a deeper understanding and appreciation. You don't really get that until I think you're a portfolio councillor and you're working more directly with the staff. And through briefings, I'm finding out all the little projects that they're doing in the region, all the big things they're working on with the public transport strategy for the region with the state government. We talk about even the little things. You see a service improvement, a trial. I know the Ginger Factory had a service trial. It's now got a permanent bus service that runs out there. That was all done by the local councillor, the staff, and of course the public transport levy. So it is delivering outcomes on the ground. These are real outcomes. But let's not hide from the fact that we've done something very, very cool. And I think it's probably the most awesome thing that we've done in the levy. And again, Councillor Bunag pushed this pretty hard. We've now got our vulnerable users program, and it is the easiest thing to sell to people because they're seeing tangible benefits on the ground. Every councillor will have their own story, good and bad, about what's being implemented. But I'll give you an example. Around schools, we've identified that it's very difficult, and we've got hazards that are obstacles for kids getting to school. In fact, we've got parents in many communities that say, I won't send my child on a bike, I won't even let them walk because I'm worried about the car-dominated community. Well, what are we doing about that? Well, I know there's a list because I've seen it from Megan Corkwell. It is a huge list. In fact, last time I checked on it, don't quote me on this, I'm going to say it's a bit of a loose figure, but Megan had already identified with her team $16 million in projects that she could push go on now and deliver. And it's really good to say that we're putting about $4 million, I can understand, roughly back into that vulnerable users program. That's real money on the ground. What does that do? Well, it changes lives. And I'll give you an example. Brightwater School. We've delivered 2 raised pedestrian zebra crossings. And in fact, a gentleman that I met with several years ago said, I live in the estate, I'm never letting my kids walk or cycle to school. It's not happening, it's too dangerous. He now does that because that infrastructure is in place. He feels safe, but there's a lot more work to do. And we all know what those lists like. When I started, I had 12 projects on my list. It's probably over 30. And the more people find out about the good news and the success of the levy, they buy into it. And that's exactly what we want. We want people contacting us. We want people to identify where those shortfalls are and work with the council staff. And I've picked out that one because I think that really shows where the rubber hits the road. But there's more than just safety improvements. We all know about the FlexiLink service that predominantly works in the hinterland. That connects people. That connects isolated people that may not be able to drive. It gets them to the doctor. It gets them to the shop. It is really important. We talked earlier about the ability to bring on public transport services. We all know how hard it is to get the state government to produce a new connection, whether that's a bus service to the local shops or potentially a bus service that connects to another service, potentially to get to the rail. Well, we're actually using the public transport levy to trial those services with the state government. And if they're successful, the state government is jumping in and taking those services over. And it's fantastic. But someone needs to lead the charge. And we talk about the Ride Score program. Everyone knows how good that has been. In fact, we've won awards for it. It's about getting people to school. It's about getting them out of the car and reducing traffic. But Madam Mayor, can I just say, I have actually got an instance in Division 6 right now. And it's an interesting one because we've got a proposed cycleway. And in fact, we've got proposed cycleways throughout the region. I need an extension, don't I?
You do need an extension of time.
I saw the
So
look.
Councillor Suarez, seconded Councillor Hungerford. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Dixon.
Wasn't sure if I could vote for myself on that. I don't get to talk too long too often, so I really appreciate the opportunity. But the rubber hits the road right now, and we hear so often there's too much traffic, there's too many cars on the road. Well, something needs to change because you can't just keep building traffic lanes. Eventually you're going to run out of room. And, you know, case in point right now in Division 6, and I showed the CEO yesterday, we've got a proposed cycleway and it's going to go all the way from, hopefully, the university through Division 7, through Division 6, in Division 4 up to Marcoola. That's the plan, and it's going to connect us even further into Maroochy. We've got the vision, we've got the plan. People tell us there's too much traffic. They don't feel safe riding on the road. In fact, even some of the footpaths are pretty dodgy too because you're dealing with cars coming in and out of driveways. So we're out there right now, Madam Mayor, doing community consultation on this link. And the one thing that I found very, very difficult is every time you bring something in, you've got a cause and effect situation. In this instance, we've got proposals to remove some on-street car parking, and the locals are very upset. But the same locals are also very upset about the traffic situation in the area. They don't like the safety issues with young children connecting to schools being on the footpath near driveways. They don't like the high-speed scooters that are roaring up the streets and on footpaths. They need an alternative. And I think we need to be brave. The point is, we need to be brave in this discussion with our community. We can't keep going the way we're going. And I want to try my best as not only a local councillor, but a representative for transport to look at what we can do different. And it's all about compromise. But we've got these opportunities, not just in my local area, but for the whole region. And I think now with such a strong public transport levy, such a strong vision from the council, we can really deliver some fantastic dividends on the ground. Madam Mayor, I have talked too much, but as you can see, I'm already very, very positive and, you know, I'm finding a lot of depth to this discussion around public transport, and I'm starting to evolve in that space and quite enjoy it. But most of all, can I just acknowledge the staff? We're just councillors that vote on funding allocations and strategies, but the staff are doing all the hard work. And in fact, the staff are coming out to the community meetings like the one I was at last Thursday, where there's some upset individuals and they're there backing us as well. Madam Mayor, I will leave it there for now, but it's just good to understand some of the positive work this council's doing. And Mr CEO, congratulations to your staff.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I will be supporting the report today and all of the other reports that sit under it. I will talk briefly about some of the highlights that recognise community, and that without community, we're nothing at all. And I urge and encourage everyone to actually take the time and read the annual reports from the community strategy, because it really speaks to what is achieved by everyone working together. And I simply don't have the time. We would need a whole just one-day conference just on the community strategy alone if we really wanted to unpack the benefits and what has been achieved over the last year. And I will try and make sure I don't start talking about what we've already done this year. But the main thing that happened in the community space was to actually refresh the whole strategy It's a strategy that takes us into 2041, which is a long way off. So we've refreshed that strategy with an update and implemented a new 5-year action plan. And some of the key things that have come from that already is a new stretched RAP, which is a vital step in our work with reconciliation with First Nations people, and how, as a major organisation on the Sunshine Coast, we can demonstrate leadership for other organisations, whether it's a sole trader or another corporation the same scale as council, in how we can work towards reconciliation. We've also continued with our Shine a Light on Racism campaign in its second phase, and we've had community members standing up to be patrons to shine a light on racism and the harm and damage it does to our community. We've also worked with homeless people, and we've worked really hard to listen, and with them created the Lived Experience Homeless Project, and it now goes by the name of Street Up. And the work that they have done to inform organisations, to inform council, has made a difference in a very, very challenging space that in the time of this strategy has moved from a crisis to an emergency. And I look forward to an emergency-like response from other levels of government to support what we're doing, because we cannot do this on our own. We need many more to be involved for the daily emergency of not having a safe place to sleep and live, right through to the longer term fixes in terms of making a change and difference in housing options. We can support that, as you heard today, with an award, but we need other government levels to make that a reality. We've also supported our youth forum. We've worked in the arts and culture space. Horizon Festival attracted 20,000 people to the Sunshine Coast. And I do mean attracted to the Sunshine Coast, because nearly half of them did actually come from out of the area. And it was an opportunity where local artists were showcased in their own community, which is really important if you're an artist, to have that opportunity. We've worked towards inclusion in sport. And for people who have a disability, you'll be able to read their stories in our annual report and find out that it's not just about participating in sport, it's about belonging in our community. The Healthy Sunshine Coast programme has got 8,000 members who are participating in activities for their own health and well-being. And as I said, I could talk and share with you and have a discussion about this all day of what's been successful and what we have got left to do. And we have got a huge amount left to do. The strategy is to 2041. We've got a new 5-year plan. There is just so much to do. We digitised 20,000 images from Bill Robinson's photo library. They are now available for everyone to access and use, and they even are the feature of our heritage calendar, which everyone can get a copy of for next year. Our Multicultural Action Group have been very involved with the Shine a Light on Racism campaign that I've already talked about. And there are so many more things I want to tell you. But I want to share the words of one person who is a patron in our racism campaign. And what he says applies to everywhere where you find exclusion and people judging based on difference. And what he said was, inclusion is not a favour. It is a necessity. It strengthens us all. When we listen, when we make space for others, and when we speak up together, our whole community becomes better, safer, and more resilient. And if we are able to take that approach to every single thing that we do as organisations, but also as individuals, we will indeed have a strong community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. This is basically a report on, well, we're presenting as councillors and as the Mayor on other people's homework, and that is the organisation. So I'd like to acknowledge the CEO, all of the ELT, and the thousands of employees within our council who carry out the work that we are proudly calling out today. And Madam Mayor, I think it was the CEO that said once, never get between the Mayor and a microphone. You haven't left much for the rest of us to say. But what I will do is I will talk to the environment and livability strategy specifically. There's so much that goes on in this space, and Councillor David Law just spoke beautifully about exclusion. I think in the environment and livability space, we could also apply some reflection on inaction, and that's certainly not what this council does. We have taken a lot of action in a lot of areas across our portfolio. New street trees, climate readiness actions. I know that's in the media a lot of late, and I really appreciate the team's work in this space, because if we do not prepare, we know that things are changing, weather events are happening, it's impacting our infrastructure, and we are taking steps to get ready for that. Design guide for apartments and houses. More people are coming. We're looking at a strategy of infill development. We need to make sure that when we do that, we do it in a way that retains people's livabilities. Biodiversity actions, we're doing a lot of reporting, we're changing lighting, we're providing wildlife bridges, we're planning, we've done our invasive plants and animals plan, our healthy coast plan, and our shoreline and erosion management plan. We've upgraded coastal infrastructure, we've highlighted community partnerships, we've made placemaking improvements, we've had scientific recognition and First Nation partnerships within the Blue Heart. We've grown our green spaces with land acquisitions, and we are progressing waste initiatives, tracking our emissions and making progress on reductions. That's the one area in this report that actually shows a bit of trend analysis here. We normally just get a figure, but the emissions report actually shows how we are making way in terms of reducing our reduction through our actions. And that leads me to one of the other statistics in the report, which is the allocation of sport and recreation land per 1,000 residents. We have a benchmark that we'd like to achieve by 2041 of 5 hectares per 1,000 residents. This is heavily influenced by population growth and when council makes land acquisitions for the purposes of sport and recreation. But what the trend tells us, if you look at past annual reports, is that we are failing. We are going backwards. In 21-22, we had 4.65 hectares, and that's after we acquired 230 hectares of land for sport and recreation. In 22-23, we went backwards to 4.62 hectares. In 23-24, we went backwards again, down to 4.61 hectares, and that's after we acquired another 46.5 hectares of land. Now, this sport and recreation land is land that is within council's ownership, but it is the reason why I push so hard to retain sport and recreation land zoning, whether it's in public ownership or whether it's in private ownership. We need to do everything we can for a growing population to make sure that they have places where they can recreate and play sport. Our region, if we don't do this, our region will end up with a whole lot of people and few options to recreate. I have spoken on behalf of Councillor Burns and myself as portfolio councillors, and I thank Councillor Burns for his work throughout the year. It's been a delight working with you. You play the clown, but you're wicked smart, and I really appreciate having you by my side.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. And I did make the most of my opportunity to speak today, but I note that you found quite a few other items to talk about still, so thank you for that. Extra achievements, well done. Councillor Bunag.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's great to see we're all playing nicely together. So fun. Anyway, it's been a big year together, hasn't it? And this is really the culmination of the things that our organisation has done through the first full financial year that this council has been able to work together. So congratulations to you, Madam Mayor, and also to the CEO. But I'd like to echo the comments of Councillor Dixon and Councillor Suarez. You know, we're nothing without our staff. It's our staff who are out there each and every day who deliver on this work. And it's fair to say that this has been a year of transition for many of our people in this organisation, adapting to a new framework and adapting to a new organisational structure, and also new priorities. It's very, very difficult, I guess, for staff when a new bunch of councillors come in with big, bold ideas, throwing out the rule book and throwing out the plans and saying, let's start all over again in some cases. So I acknowledge the work that our staff have done in this space. You know, a great example is in the transport levy adjustments that were made, and the agility of our staff to actually adapt to that was really impressive. And I think it's also a reflection of the fact that our staff are operating in a very, very difficult environment in our community-facing roles. It's a scary time when you have to start talking about buying stab vests for officers, just going about doing their job. So I'd like to extend my thanks to our staff for the work that they have done, and also to the community for working to make sure that they work with our staff, because our staff actually live in the Sunshine Coast and are part of the Sunshine Coast's fabric. I wanted to, I guess, reflect on the vision that we've had for the region, and yes, we've gone through the process of adopting a new corporate plan, but the overriding vision of becoming Australia's most sustainable region has kept true. And it is exciting, I think, to be able to look at what we've achieved over the last 12 months. And it's something to celebrate, but it's also, I think, a guiding post in terms of some of the priorities and things for us to think about and be aware of going ahead into the future. One of the key bits of data and information that's contained within the Community Strategy Annual Report is around residents feeling that they can get help from friends, family, neighbours or community organisations when they need it. And the target for our council and region is 85% or greater. And the result that we had was 79% of people saying that they felt as that was the case. And that's a really important, I think, reflection for our region, because it recognises that we have quite a lot of pressures on people at the moment. We have a lot of people who are feeling the pinch when it comes to cost of living, but also a lack of connectedness in society. And that's why it's so important that we are investing in pieces of infrastructure and services that give people the opportunity to come together, to socialise with one another, and also, I guess, to build that sense of community, because it's not just council doing that, it's community organisations right across the region. And when I look at one of the main services that we invest in, it's our library services. And 900,000 visits in the last financial year is an enormous amount of people coming through the doors of our libraries. 144,000 members. You know, that's over a third of Sunshine Coast residents being a member of our library services. And I think it shows and demonstrates why people are actually wanting to come and visit our library spaces, participate in our programs that are at our libraries, because there is this need and desire in our community for social interaction and to feel a sense of belonging in the community that is reflected not just in the data but in the visitation numbers that we have across the Sunshine Coast. And it's something for us to be cognizant of when we are making decisions about investments into the future when it comes to infrastructure and services. Another thing to celebrate is also around the Olympic infrastructure that was announced. But for me, it's also a warning in terms of making sure that we absolutely capitalise and get the best out of this opportunity from a legacy perspective going forward. This is people say it's a once in a generation opportunity, it's a once in 100 years opportunity, realistically. And the Sunshine Coast needs to be continuing to advocate strongly to the state and federal government to make sure that we do not miss out on the legacy pieces of infrastructure that we need from the Olympic Games. And that brings me to a close on one further point, and which is around our public transport. It is heartening, as Councillor Dixon has said, that we are investing in transport, whether active transport or trials. We need to work closely with other federal levels of government to ensure that we are getting the right public transport systems funded on the Sunshine Coast. The data shows that we are still going backwards when it comes to the utilisation rates that we are seeking to achieve on the Sunshine Coast. And if there's one piece of legacy infrastructure that we need from the Olympics, it's decent public transport. Because if you look at our RED strategy, if you look at our social strategy, it is all about making sure that we are connected and thriving, and a public transport system that actually works and goes to places where people live is vital to achieving that. So one to watch into the future, and thank you very much to the staff and councillors for their work over the last 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Councillor Christian has spoken about our portfolio. However, I can't let this opportunity go by without letting the community know just what a difficult year last year was. I mean, it's all not roses and sunshine. And as councillors and as our new CEO and other staff members have discovered, there were numerous difficult issues that we had to deal with in relation to asset management, in relation to deferral. Like last year, we deferred some $50 million, in excess of $50 million of expenditure because of the various economic reasons. And also, we had probably, certainly in my time as a councillor for the last 5 years, as well as in my previous 3 terms as Clarendon City Councillor, the most difficult budget and that I have ever been involved in. And in 40 years of business, I had a lot of difficult budgets, but never one as difficult as the one that we had to deliver this time. So I'd just like to say that those sort of decisions that had to be made create heartache, difficulty for individual councillors and for staff. And I want everybody to know that I personally recognise how everybody worked very cohesively to deliver the right outcomes. And I want to thank the staff. I want to thank the Mayor, the CEO, our executive leaders, and also all of our staff, internally and externally, because we can make decisions, but they are the ones that have to deliver the result. So it's very much appreciated, and I just want everybody to know how appreciative I, and I believe the rest of the councillors are, for the hard work that has been done. And I ask everybody to vote to support the annual report.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. That was very lovely and true when we're talking about the staff. Any other councillors wishing to speak today? No? I'll stand to close. In closing, thank you, councillors, for your reflections, for speaking with passion and with purpose about our annual report and strategies this morning. Thank you to our officers, you've heard it already today, but one final time, for working to deliver our vision. Your hard work and commitment does not go unnoticed. I don't think I need to say any more other than to commend this report to you here this morning. I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr Flanagan. And we move up to item 8.2, which is the quarterly progress report. Mr CEO, I believe you'll be introducing this item.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Natoli. I'm very pleased to present the first quarterly progress report for 2025-26 financial year, outlining the progress of activities within the operational plan for 25-26 for the period 1st of July to the 30th of September 2025. And you will see in some of the things that I and my colleagues talked to today that there are some parallels with the annual report. But that is now a historical document. And it is hugely important that we are able to keep the progress that was made last year and that we monitor the progress from last year on a quarterly basis. So this report reflects that. It reflects our commitment to transparency, performance, and delivering on the priorities that we have all just discussed in our corporate and operational plans. We have made strong early progress across several areas, including infrastructure, environment, and community programmes. Capital works are progressing well, with major investments underway in road infrastructure and foreshore revitalisation. A key milestone was also reached in the Nambour landfill expansion project, marked by opening of the new landfill cell. We continue our attention on our financial sustainability plan, with a focus on effectiveness and efficiency of services and resources. Now, we do continue to face external pressures, including rising costs, economic uncertainty, and of course, increasing demand for services. This quarter, though, has really set us up with a solid foundation for the year, and we will continue to monitor progress very closely and make adjustments as needed to stay on track and be responsive. We will be transparent to Council and indeed to our community. Now, 96% of our operational plan for 25-26 activities has progressed as planned, and only 2 activities are experiencing minor delays to their expected delivery timeframes, and 1 activity is currently under review. The activities experiencing delays are the construction of the Moffat Beach seawall due to site conditions and actually material availability. Caloundra Transport Corridor upgrade is pending the Australian government approval process, and we continue to remain very focused on that, and we'll be making additional efforts to make sure that we're able to make progress as quickly as we possibly can. The strategic parking framework is currently under review and did not commence in Q1. I would like, though, to bring your attention to the key highlights for this quarter as well. The Citizens Panel, and there was one last night. Council launched the Council's first Citizens Panel, bringing together 53 residents who reflect the different backgrounds and characteristics of our community. The panel provides an additional way to listen to our community, to learn, and for Council to make informed decisions on the issues that matter to our region. The first session was held in September, making an important step in strengthening our engagement, our authentic engagement with our community. I would also like to touch again on Caloundra Library Plus, because why not? The official opening of the new library in September saw the transformation of the former Caloundra Administrative Building into a vibrant, inclusive and future-focused community space. And the facility features a state-of-the-art district library, but also includes community meeting facilities and spaces and a modern customer contact centre. In conclusion, I encourage our community to take a moment to read this report and to understand what we are doing and how we are reporting on what we're doing to shape our region. I want to give a sincere thank you to the executive leadership team. Your energy and focus and commitment to collaborations made a real impact from day one. And I'm looking forward to building on the foundations of this report with all of you. Thank you, of course, as always, to Madam Mayor and to the councillors for your leadership, and our valued volunteers and partners as well, all of whom help deliver our operational plan and contribute to our connected, livable and thriving region. I'm now going to invite directors to share with Council key achievements and progress from their departments this quarter, aligned to the delivery of our operational plan. And I'd like to start with Jodie Fielding, our Director for Community Strengthening.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, John, and good morning, councillors, colleagues and the community. I'm really pleased to present the key achievements of the Community Strengthening Department for the first quarter of this operational year. And as the CEO has mentioned and a few others, Library Plus Caloundra officially opened its doors on the 22nd of September, with more than 2,700 visitors on the first day. And since then, over 37,000 visitors have entered the doors of the facility, indicating it's a strong start to this important community hub. As the CEO also outlined, this quarter marked the first for the Council with the launch of the Sunshine Coast Citizens Panel, alongside consultation on the draft planning scheme and the youth plan, important steps in how we engage with our community. Council also adopted the Stretch Reconciliation and Action Plan in July, setting a clear path for strengthening partnerships with traditional custodians and fostering inclusive communities that value First Nations cultures. NAIDOC Week was also celebrated across the region, with events led by First Nations young people in line with the 2025 theme, The Next Generation, Strength, Vision and Legacy. Our All Abilities Action Plan advanced with the Realistic Race simulation and the launch of the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Initiative, both aimed at making our community more inclusive and accessible. The Healthy Sunshine Coast program delivered over 90 activities supporting 6,000 participants of all ages and abilities. And new offerings mean we're helping to reach more diverse groups and keep our community active and connected. The Lifeguard Volunteer Patrols kicked off in September with expanded services at Coolum North, a roving lifeguard north of the Maroochy River mouth, and additional support starting to roll out at Marcoola, Majimba and Discovery Beach during peak holiday periods. Over $3.2 million was distributed to 413 community groups this quarter, an increase of 89 applications compared to last year. We're supporting grassroots projects right across the region. And the Caloundra Regional Gallery welcomed over 2,000 visitors each month in the quarter, marked its 25-year jubilee with a milestone exhibition, and hosted the 2025 Sunshine Coast National Arts Prize. And finally, we welcomed over 1,000 new citizens across 4 ceremonies, a wonderful reminder of the diversity and vibrancy of our community. I'll now hand over to Scott Whittaker, the Director of Infrastructure and Natural Assets. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Fielding. Welcome, Mr Whittaker.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, and thanks, Jody, and good morning to councillors, colleagues and the community who are here in person and online. Building on Jody's update, I'm pleased to share some updates on where we're going with some and a few highlights for the quarter for the infrastructure program. As John mentioned earlier, the Capital Works program is well underway and tracking well for this financial year. It's great to see progress across several of the major infrastructure projects, including the Honey Farm Road Sports and Recreation Precinct, the seawall reconstruction and improvement works at Moffat Beach and Golden Beach, the Nambour Landfill Expansion Project, the Mooloolaba Foreshore Revitalisation, and the Kawana Aquatic Centre upgrade. To highlight and talk about just one of those, the Stage 2 of the Mooloolaba Foreshore Revitalisation Project began in July, which involved the demolition of both the existing amenity building and part of the seawall, which will make way for a new central meeting place and southern parkland seawall. Stakeholder communication in this part of in Mooloolaba with the community is ongoing to ensure we can continue to support local businesses throughout construction. The Dog Exercise Area Recreation Plan and Network update is progressing well and is on schedule to be presented at an upcoming ordinary meeting at Council. This plan will guide the future provisions for dog exercise areas and support community health and lifestyle needs. Council's local disaster management plan has been refreshed and is ready to be implemented as required. To ensure, and this is being done to ensure we can provide a coordinated response, preparedness, response and recovery for the region in response to disaster events. At Council, we are fully prepared for the storm season and whatever else may lie ahead. With disaster management arrangements in place, our Nambour Local Disaster and Coordination Centre at operational readiness, and we have very strong collaborative relationships with our emergency management partners. We've also progressed a number of sustainability-focused initiatives two of these to note. We've closed a tender for the food organics and garden organics facility to help meet landfill diversion targets and reduce emissions. And we've also completed a new hard stand area at the Nambour Waste Precinct to support long-term waste operations. I look forward to seeing these projects continue to progress in the next quarter. While I have the stage, I'd just like to thank my team for their support since I've been here as well, and looking forward to a bright future that we have ahead. I'll now hand over to Deborah, who's our Director for Sustainable Growth and Planning, who'll share some insights into her team's performance.
Thank you, Mr Whittaker. Deborah Robinson, welcome.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you. Thank you, Scott and colleagues, and good morning, councillors and the community. It's my pleasure to present the quarterly progress report for sustainable growth and planning. As we heard earlier this morning from both Councillor Bunag and from the Mayor, Q1 saw the delivery of the remaining 14 dwellings as part of the Marcoola affordable housing project. And Coaster Bay Housing Group is now managing the tenancies for eligible low-income key worker households. Council conducted 10 weeks of formal public consultation on the proposed Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme and associated scheme policies. The consultation program included 26 in-person events held across the region. With public consultation now completed, attention has turned to the consideration of the submissions received. This process will help Council determine whether to proceed with the proposed planning scheme and what changes may be required to community feedback. Development of the AI Planning Assistant tool progressed with a soft launch external release on the 1st of October 2025. Sunshine Coast residents now have access to the new AI-powered online tool, providing instant, reliable development guidance, anywhere, anytime. Whether you're adding a shed or building a granny flat, renovating your home or starting something bigger, the AI Development Assistant is designed to support early planning decisions and to make the development process easier to navigate. It helps you understand what applications may be required without needing technical knowledge or having all the details up front. This project has been made possible through funding from the federal government. Council delivered 1,158 specialist advice and support services to small businesses across the region in collaboration with chambers of commerce, industry groups and other key partners. These initiatives included the Thriving Through Change Business Expo, the Sunshine Coast Business Women Year Awards, the Sunshine Coast Supplier Briefing and workshops on supply chain development, carbon accounting and doing business with Council. Work progressed on the delivery of the refreshed Major Event Strategy 2018 to 2028, with a focus on maintaining a balanced calendar, planning for Olympic legacy opportunities and supporting emerging events. 20 sponsored major events were delivered throughout the quarter, contributing to regional tourism, economic activity and community engagement. Key events included the Curated Plate, the Sunshine Coast Marathon, Ironman 70.3, the Queensland Garden Show, the International Mathematical Olympiad and the Australian Wearable Art Festival. Council received 460 road safety requests, with 437 of these completed. 5 speed limit reductions were implemented aimed at improving safety across targeted area. 8 crash locations were reviewed, with submissions submitted for federal government black spot funding for 5 of these crash locations. I will now hand over to Keith Parsons, our Chief Financial Officer. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Robinson. Mr Parsons, welcome.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Deborah, and good morning to councillors and those present in the chamber and online. I'm pleased to present to you this morning the financial and commercial partnerships contributions towards our outstanding organisation goal for Q1. I'll briefly highlight the key achievements and the ongoing initiatives that demonstrate our commitment to organisational excellence. Council continues to work with Sun Central Maroochydore and Walker Maroochydore developments to further development the Maroochydore City Centre. Projects in the priority development area are progressing, including the Maroochy Private Hospital, which you'll see out the window there, progressing very well. the 51st Avenue commercial building by Walker at our other window on this side, and the residential development Sol by Walker, which is behind me on the opposite corner. Sol by Walker has strong pre-sales and early works have commenced on site, so we'll be seeing that one come out of the ground soon as well. Engagement with the Queensland Government about the planning for the Sunshine Coast Athletes Village for Brisbane 32 has also commenced. The review of our internal procurement guidelines has been completed, and metrics such as a percentage of spend with local companies and First Nations business continue to be monitored to ensure objectives are met. Priority procurement achievements for 25-26 financial year include developing and implementing a First Nations procurement strategy and working towards achieving 2% of procurement spend with First Nations owned businesses. Council achieved $93.2 million of available procurement spend with local businesses in Q1. Commissioning of a 100 kVA solar voltaic system and a 200 kVA battery energy storage system at Library Plus Caloundra in August 2025 marks a major step forward in delivering Council's zero net emissions plan. The system allows charging when electricity prices are low and exporting stored energy when prices are high. Planning for a 1.8 MVA battery at the Nambour landfill is continuing. I'll now hand over to Jane Want, our Director of Transformation and Performance. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Councillors.
Thank you, Mr Parsons. Ms Want, over to you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Keith, and my fellow directors, and thank you to those in the gallery and the team online. It's my pleasure to present the quarterly progress report for business transformation and performance. As the CEO mentioned, we have continued our attention on our financial sustainability plan with a focus on the effectiveness and efficiency of our services and the way we work as an organisation. A key mechanism to support us to do this has been the development of a service catalogue that outlines the services that Council provides to the community and the activities and associated resourcing that contributes to the service level that the community experience when they access Council services. This service catalogue will provide Council with the necessary data points to make informed decisions to ensure that Council is prioritising its budget around the areas of greatest community need. Council continues to prioritise customer experience, delivering a range of initiatives that enhance accessibility, responsiveness and operational readiness. Over the last quarter, the community rated their customer experience interacting with the Council at 7.38 out of 10 and trust in Council at 3.10 out of 10. The customer insights we have gathered from the community during this period have been used to inform continuous improvement opportunities for how we can better design and deliver services around the needs of the customer. More than 87,000 customers were assisted during the recent busy rates and animal registration periods, and during this quarter, service standards remain strong, with 94% of customers finding it easy to access Council services. These achievements highlight Council's ongoing focus on community-driven services and building trust through transparency, responsiveness and innovation. Council's culture calendar over the last quarter has showcased Council's commitment to inclusion, wellbeing and a values-driven leadership. Similarly, our Wellbeing, Health and Safety Management Plan continued to reflect our commitment to our corporate values and a safe, healthy workplace. A key focus over the last quarter has been on psychosocial hazards facing our staff, with a concerning trend in aggressive behaviour from members of the public towards Council employees, particularly our frontline staff. Our psychosocial risk management project progressed across the organisation with a focus on supporting our people to proactively identify risks and implement mitigation measures through effective safety controls. The safety and wellbeing of our staff must always come first. Implementation of Council's digital plan continued, which saw Council's cybersecurity program successfully maintain zero reportable breaches throughout the last quarter. Further streamlining of duplicate or unnecessary services to support Council's financial sustainability goals continued. A great example being the digitisation of physical records to streamline processes and give the community better access and transparency to public information. Thank you again to my fellow directors for the support provided during this, our first quarter together. I will now hand back to Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Ms Want. Councillors, can I have someone move this motion? Councillor Broderick, and seconded Councillor Hungerford. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to everybody here, all of our councillors and everyone in the gallery today, noting that most of them are from the lovely Division 1. It was great to see you. Also want to give you congratulations because you've just managed to sit through more than an hour's worth of annual reports, everything wrapped up in one that we've taken and done for the last 12 months, so congratulations to you. So as our CEO mentioned, this is an exciting time for Council. We've just finished off our last corporate plan and we're starting our new corporate plan now, put together by this Council, providing a clear direction for our region over the next 5 years and reflecting our commitment to delivering meaningful outcomes for our community. As Portfolio Councillor that I share with Councillor Ted for Corporate Plan's Organisational Excellence goal, I'm genuinely excited about what this goal represents. This is about us building a high-performing, agile and community-centred organisation, which is not just about internal systems, it's about how we serve our community best, how we support each other and how our decisions reflect the principles of transparency and accountability. And we have one of those portfolios that you don't get to see a lot. We get to talk about a lot of finances and policies and things like that. But this is the one that I love because this is where we get to talk about accountability, where we get to talk about transparency and where we get to hold each other to account. So through the Organisation Excellence Goal, we've set deliberate priorities that aim to align our systems, our people and culture that we've spoken about, and to support the needs of our community, including delivering essential services through a focus on responsible, sustainable finance, which we'll talk about later, performance monitoring and digital transformation. We talk about strengthening community trust. And as we've spoken about before, the community have told us that is improving. We're fostering a great place to work by delivering a people plan that supports a safe, inclusive and high-performing workplace. And we're advancing Council's climate-ready capabilities. These are the areas that will help us deliver great outcomes for our community. And we want to ensure that the community is getting the best possible service from every interaction with Council. So while the corporate plan gives us the direction, the operational plan tells us how we're going to get there. And that's the thing that we continue to measure against. So we're talking now about quarter one, from July through to September. And it's the start of the new operational plan as well. And this is the stage where most projects have started, programs and initiatives begin implementation. As expected, progress for many activities sits around 25% complete, reflecting early stage planning and setting the foundations for delivery. And we'll see more of those delivered and outcomes as we go through. We also want to be working on improving our customer experience. And like we've mentioned already today, during the rates and animal registration periods, Council assisted more than 87,000 inquiries and maintained strong standards, with 94% of those customers reporting that it was easy to work with Council, which is really exciting. And as we've also noted, Council delivers 114 services to the community, and we were able to put all of those services in a catalogue for the first time this year, which is exciting. So our corporate plan and organisational excellence goal give us clear direction for how we're evolving to meet future needs. There's lots of great things that have stood out, and thank you so much to our executive team and to our staff for making all of that happen. And I'm going to leave, Madam Mayor, some of the rest to the end so other people have something to say. Thank you. Because I've got a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick, and you might be interested or pleased to know that I'll also be leaving the speaking to the portfolio councillors on this one. And so over to you now, Councillor Dixon.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, and I obviously spoke for a long time on the annual report. But I think it's really important to make probably two comments, and I'll stick to two. I picked two. One, I must admit I was extremely impressed by the CEO, Mr. John Baker, and Deborah Robinson for attending the community forums in regards to the planning scheme. So if we talk about our top 5 issues in council right now, the planning scheme is up there. And we know because our responsibility is to plan for growth. We've got no choice. The growth is going to come. It's how we do it. And I was really impressed at the organisation's response quickly to get to community forums. And I know everyone's got a different view on how we do that and how we get feedback. But being at one of those community forums, and I'm not sure if it was the busiest one, but it was down in the infill development area, down in and around Kawana and Point Cartwright area. There were a lot of people there, and I got to the event early. I spoke to as many people as I could. In fact, a lot of people recognised the ball guy and said, "Oh, hey, you're the enemy. You're with them, aren't you? You're with the council." And I said, "Well, actually, in fact, I'm just here to listen. I just came here to hear from people because that's my job." And a lot of people said, "No, the council's just ticking boxes. They're just here to be a tokenistic exercise." But it wasn't that at all. In fact, that meeting was so well staffed by planning scheme team, the planning scheme team in our sustainable growth area, but you had the director and the CEO and the mayor fronting some of the hardest questions I've ever had the community ask. And in fact, there were hundreds of questions asked. I know the team have gone away to provide those responses, but it's a tangible outcome. This was the first time I've seen that level of engagement, and in fact, all those questions that were asked, the council responded to. They promised they would, and they did. And the feedback I've had subsequently is that people actually feel like they're starting to be heard by the council. So I will make that point. I want to recognise the CEO, director, and the mayor, and I respect the other councillors that went to those events too, because the support from the local councillors was great. The second thing I want to talk on in the report, and it's actually close to my parents' house, and I probably need to thank Ted for this one. I don't know if a lot of the drivers are happy with it, but the speed limit review on Mons Road, long time coming. A lot of staff over the years have said it's impossible, we'll never drop the speed limit, it can't be done. Here's 100 reasons why we can't do it. It's finally happened. So don't know who did that, I don't know who's changed the agenda, but the community had petitioned council for so long because of accidents and people not even being able to get out of their driveways. The council has now fundamentally reviewed the way that the local roads operate. And I really hope this is a stepping stone, because I've said this before, our communities are so car dominated. And I look at Palmview, for example, and I say this every opportunity I can get. I'm actually writing an email to a resident now about it. I won't send my kids to school because your community's dominated by cars. And I know, because I'm in and out of that estate all the time because I work from home a lot, and people won't cross those roads. They won't push their prams across. I won't push my son across in a pram. It's too dangerous. So we need to look at dropping speed limits. We need those raised pedestrian crossings. We need to do all we can. But I'm actually glad to see the rubber's hitting the road and we're doing it. So I don't know who's responsible. I don't know who to thank. But whoever's doing it, you're doing a good job.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon.
Maybe thanks, Ted. I don't know.
Councillor Bunnag.
I love that. Thanks, somebody. It's fantastic. Thank you, somebody. And I'm actually going to talk about something completely opposite to cars, the Sunshine Coast Marathon. Sunshine Coast Marathon. So when I first got told that the Sunshine Coast Marathon was going to be adopting a single lap course, I think it's fair to say I said a few words that probably would have come out of my mouth if I ever ran a marathon about my body at that time. And the fact of the matter is, the feedback that I've had from community groups who are part of the marathon in terms of staging it and hosting it, they have been nothing but praise for council and also to Atlas Events for the way that they organised the marathon and made it into a community celebration. And I think when we have major events on the Sunshine Coast that do create impacts, whether it be to traffic, road closures and residents in places like Twin Waters, along Bradman Avenue, there is always a degree of, from my perspective, anxiety around how people will respond to that. But it's a really good snapshot, I think, into what we have to start preparing for in terms of the Olympics come 2032 and the Paralympics, because we are going to see some disruptions, we're going to see road closures, we're going to see lots of people coming to the region. But the way that people in my community embraced the Sunshine Coast Marathon and the new route was absolutely fantastic. And I want to say thank you to organisations like the Maroochy North Shore Lions Club, who are on the drink station at Majimba, handing out drinks of water on a very, very cold day. One of the members, Clive, his hand's still frozen, and the only way that we can thaw it out is over a Bunnings barbecue every so often. We had the Majimba Residents Association. They set up some face painting and an activation at Power Memorial Park, which was really, really well attended. We had the Twin Waters Residents Association with a musician outside Cock and Hen in Twin Waters. It was a fantastic morning of celebration. We even had a golf event for the golfers in the afternoon who had been locked up for the first 5 hours of the morning, itching to get out and play at Twin Waters, and we were able to work with the Twin Waters Residents Association to put on a golf afternoon for them. So it was an amazing demonstration of the connectedness between our community and our major events, and that embracing of those opportunities, because it does bring with it complications, but it also brings with it the opportunity to celebrate. And thanks to Chris Secker and the whole team in the major events space under Deb Robinson for the work that they did with Council. And also I want to give a shout out to my own Councillor Liaison Officer, Nat, who really did an amazing job rounding all of these people together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. I think you might have set yourself a challenge for the marathon next year. We might be looking at your time on that. Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, I obviously rise to support the quarterly progress report. Just a couple of things. I'd just like to first a shout out and a thank you to Councillor Taylor Bunnag for earlier this week he organised an online Teams meeting with Chief Advisor to the Environment Minister, Murray Watt. And that was in regards to the MNES, which we're waiting for an environmental approval for the Caloundra Transport Corridor upgrade. And currently that road, obviously the construction is still on hold, and we know the importance of it. We've got tens of millions of dollars coming from the state that they've actually committed to spending, but we need that road to be delivered. Especially as well, I know everyone in the room has probably touched on Library Plus. I just want to say thank you. That has been an absolute transformation of the city centre for Caloundra. The actual change in the demographic of people that are actually entering into Caloundra now has just been so incredible. It's just created so much activity, footfall, and to see so many different people from all walks of life come into that library and enjoy the community benefits of it is just so inspiring. And what we deliver as a council is one of our legislative responsibilities. We have kicked that goal out of the park for Caloundra, so thank you so much. Bribie Island, I just want to make a comment in the room because I know we've only got one more meeting before Christmas, but I know there's obviously a lot of works with a lot of sand that's been moved and they're just about to close opening 3. And I did touch on with the team in regards to this area, but my mind goes back to an episode, I think it was at Inskip Point during the night, where there was a certain section of a camping ground that actually from subsidence, water just flooded in and it just all dropped away during the night. And what concerns me at Bribie is that it's very unstable. It's going to be an area over Christmas break and New Year's Eve that's going to be heavily populated. I don't know how we're going to keep the community out of that area, but just to sort of raise that in today's forum for our council to be aware of that, because I think a lot of people will be interested to get over on Bribie, and it might be something, Madam Mayor, we need to work with the state. And just quickly, I know we've got to meet a target of 3,200 trees before 2032 as part of our street tree planting program, but I just want to make sure the team do a wonderful work in obviously shading a lot of our corridors and streets, but really it's so important that we make sure we work with all our different stakeholders in council, especially around sight lines. And I've actually had a personal experience in Caloundra where a black spot funded upgrade intersection, we had some plantings there, we had to actually remove them. And really it was just, I suppose it's just making sure that the teams all collaborate between each other. I know our departments do some fantastic work. It may have been a little bit of a breakdown in comms, but I just want to touch on that episode there. But thank you, obviously highly supportive of council, and thank you for everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Burns.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. There seems to have been a theme this morning of people thanking people, and so because everyone else has been thanked, I'd like to thank myself. Well done, Tim, for showing up. the quarterly report's a good thing. There's been some good efforts, and particularly in regards to our environment livability strategy this morning. I do want to just pay attention to the medium density demonstration project. This is a really important and exciting project for the region, in that it's actually helping us understand what is great plan, what are great designed medium density units or dwellings that will actually suit our local climate, have a really great local amenity, support vibrant, active and connected communities, and actually that look great, that are actually beautiful, that we're really proud of. And this is important for us moving forward as we continue to grow, that we actually grow in a way that has the best built outcome possible, because that will be the thing that's celebrated and people will go, how good is it to live here? So I'm excited about that project and really look forward to it continuing further. And to support that in a little bit more detail, we've had great work amongst the team who've been doing a landscape design guide, which is really aimed at our industry partners as well as homeowners. But it's really about how do we actually ensure that the landscapes we have surrounding our neighbourhoods and our new developments really do aid to a livable community. It's actually in our vision statement that we want to actually be a livable place. These type of landscape guides will actually support that. It creates cooler neighbourhoods, it creates more walkable neighbourhoods, it softens built form, it provides setback opportunities. That means that buildings aren't overpowering neighbours. This is really important work, and I want to commend the team for progressing that a little bit more, and it will really partner well with the Big Yellow Book, which is our design guide, as well as our the MUD. I call it the MUD design guide, but I can't remember it, but it's about town houses and that sort of stuff around what is great design. Excitingly, I actually have a number of young people in my community who really love to ride their mountain bikes, and they love to go to Sugarbag Road tracks, and they just are active cyclists, and they're very excited to know that the Olympic Games mountain biking is going to be hosted here on the Sunshine Coast. But they're also always going, hey, we want more tracks and let's keep doing these track works. And I know Councillor Ted's been doing some pump tracks. I know Councillor Maria's got that planned. And so it's exciting to see that our planning on our vast network of regional trails and tracks is ongoing, and that includes Sugarbag mountain bike trails down in Caloundra Division 2 area, the Parklands conservation work, which is actually to develop our Olympics mountain bike infrastructure and recreational precinct. That is going to be the most significant change to that area and will be a really significant driver of tourism into our hinterland areas. We've also got the Seven Peaks Trail in the Glasshouse Mountains area, which is a really exciting idea to connect up the 7 key peaks through the Glasshouse Mountains as a walkable trail. It is a spectacular part of our community. It's an area that is so iconic that when you're coming into the coast, you see the glasshouses and you know you're on the sunny coast. When you're in Caloundra, you're looking from the top of the hill, you see the Glasshouse Mountains. The 7 Peak Trail will be an absolute game changer for hinterland tourism on the Sunshine Coast. And lastly, the Nambour to Coolum Trail, which is a long time thought through, and there's a great community involvement. There's really good considered strategic direction happening in that. And it will just actually provide a really key link for our hinterland communities from Nambour to Coolum, but equally can connect up to our coastal pathway that is already there. And I think that's something that's going to be so important for our region moving forward. To the 900 trees planted this quarter through the Street Tree Master Plan, we are on track to meet the 3,200 trees for this year, not just for 2032, Councillor Terry. And so I love the street tree planting. And so to the idea of how do we do it, for residents who might receive a note in their letterbox and a white dot out the front of their place, there is all the detail in the letter that you receive outlining what the program is, why we're doing it and how it will be funded, but equally there's a number and an email address that you can contact to talk to the team responsible to better understand and raise any concerns you have about street trees in the front of your property. But I think they're vital, they're important, they will lower temperatures, they will improve amenability, and they will show our region to be a great place in the future. And finally, exciting to see the development that is significant around Moffat Beach Seawall, the Golden Beach, TS Onslow area, significant works to support our public infrastructure along our coastal strip. We are going to continue to confront climate-related issues in our coastal areas, and this infrastructure will protect that into the future. So So thanks to the team for all of that, and it's a really significant quarter, Mr CEO. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just wanted to pick up on Councillor Tim's comments about medium density, and obviously Cotton Tree is an area which is loved and is growing and obviously becoming quite dense in terms of the number of people wanting to live there, and it's a very desirable place to live. And when I first got elected, I had this vision of creating Cotton Tree into a village, and basically First Avenue, Aerodrome Road being the boundaries. And I had discussions with the former CEO, and really for a number of years there was no traction at all. And I always, in my 17 years in local government, honestly, unless you have an officer that actually believes and wants to work with you and supports what you do, you won't get anything done. And it's really frustrating for a councillor when that doesn't happen. And so and then Megan Corkwell came along, and she believed in the project, and we delivered now 2 raised pedestrian crossings in 4th Avenue, which when I first made the inquiry, we had $1,000 budget for raised or any pedestrian crossings. We now have $4 million that we have towards the vulnerable pedestrian program. And of course, Deborah talked about the black spot funding. We've now got 6 raised pedestrian crossings going along the streets at 6th Avenue. And eventually, the next program will be to actually cross a very busy 6th Avenue. We are putting street trees in Cotton Tree. We've dropped the speed limit in every street in Cotton Tree down to 40 kilometres, except for 4 streets, which we dropped to 30 kilometres an hour. We've dropped the speed limit at Alex, along Alex Parade, Horton Parade, and Aerodrome Road, and all the way down Bradburn Avenue to 50 k's an hour. That's what our community has been asking, and we're starting to get this traction. So Megan is the person who I attribute to understanding our communities. And again, areas that I've had no traction in terms of reducing speed around Goonawara Drive, I'm now starting to get that happening as well. So that's just really positive. But what I wanted to highlight was, as much as we're planning for new communities in terms of that medium density, we've got to focus on some of these older areas and demonstrate that we can actually improve the livability of those people in those areas. Even though it's a desirable area to live, it can be improved tremendously by making it a walkable, pedestrian-friendly precinct in that area. We will certainly do that, and obviously a number of the programs that have been highlighted today by our general managers clearly show that they're working. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Councillor Law.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Just want to again recognise the work happening in our community space through the team there, with progress towards our action plan being on target and up to date. So that is really, really satisfying. And some of those things include the actions are beginning to roll out in relation to our stretch wrap, which are very good. And just to focus on the work we're doing in our affordable housing and to support homeless people who are currently experiencing homelessness. And we have worked extremely hard in the Nambour area with local service providers who are working to help people who are currently homeless, who are currently living in what is a flash flood zone, so that they can actually find somewhere better to live. We've also been working through the forum, which acknowledge your work in that, Madam Mayor, to have the Housing Minister come to Nambour to speak to the people who are living on the creek bank in Nambour, Petrie Creek, which, as I mentioned, is a flash flood zone, to make a difference and to get something to happen and to create a new response to this emergency, because all current responses are not working because people are still living in these conditions. Council has undertaken the work we agreed to do through that forum and presented our report back to the Housing Department and the Housing Minister. We are waiting to hear back from the Housing Minister and Department to see what of those actions may be implemented. Hopefully, all actions will be considered and will be implemented. There are some very good ideas there to respond to the emergency we are facing. But we are yet to have a date set and confirmed where we will have that final forum to determine what will be done. But I want to focus on that very clearly because there are people asking, well, you've been doing this for 3 months and nothing seems to have changed. Well, what appears to have changed on the ground and what's happening behind the scenes to make long-term sustainable change is hard to see at the moment. But the place is looking tidier. We're working really well with the Shack, one of our very highly regarded organisations, very well connected with the homeless community, to make a difference and ensure that the place is tidy. Homelessness is a transient thing. One day there'll be no one there, the next day there'll be a camp. The camp might stay for a few weeks and then they'll move on and camp somewhere else. Then we have to tidy up, clean up, do our best to restore things as they ought to be and as we want them to be. But we need a response back from the Housing Minister and his department to the report that we put forward. And once we've got that, then we can start to see some action on the ground. And I just want to make it really clear, the Council, our community development team have fulfilled everything we undertook to do. We are waiting for a response from the relevant Housing Minister, the Housing Minister and his department. I can't wait to hear what that will be. The other thing I'm going to mention, 2 more things actually. Yes, the Nambour Trail, recreation trail. We've heard a little bit about that just now. And I think that with a little bit more work, there is an offer that if we can join and collaborate with state government, we could also attract some more funding to that to see what can happen at the Nambour end of that trail. There is currently city deal funding, I believe, that will see action on the ground very soon, more towards Coolum. Obviously, I'm very keen to see that happen more towards Nambour. It has 2 ends, this trail. And finally, I probably wasn't going to mention it, but since many others have, Caloundra Library Plus, it is an absolute credit to our libraries network. We've heard that it is absolutely transformational, it is inspiring, and it is providing a tremendous service for our community. Having heard about that several times, and I agree it is those things, it is attracting close to 10,000 people a week into the CBD of Caloundra. But I have to remind us that the thing that isn't right about that is we are not doing part 3 of that project, which is the same transformation in Nambour and the Hinterland of the same building, the Eddie de Vere building, the council administrative centre of what was Maroochy Shire Council, was due to be transformed in the same way now. And as I've spoken of before, that's not happening until maybe 2030, 2032. Do you want a construction site in the middle of a town in the Olympics? Not sure. But we've got a long way to go on that. But the point is, we need to look at the hinterland. It is a major centre zone. It has a railway station. It has a bus interchange. It has a hospital. It has 3 high schools and many private schools around the edge. It can contribute to many of the pressures we hear the face is facing over where will people live. Well, we've got all the services over there in the hinterland, and we need to start making the place more attractive for people to come and live there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillors, no one else wishing to speak? Councillor Broderick, would you like to close?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to everybody who's spoken. And thanks, Tim, for picking up on the 7 Peaks Trail, Councillor Tim. And just a unashamedly just going to put it out there, for everybody that wants an update on the 7 Peaks Trail, that's going in the newspaper next week, in our community newspaper, the Glasshouse Country and Maleny News, and we've got an update in there for you about that as well, so we're very excited about that. So shameless plug there. And I've also noticed something that we haven't picked up on in going through all of these stats today is one of the things that we are here to do most is to support our community. We do that through our community grants. And this quarter alone, we awarded 413 community grants, which is worth more than $3.2 million, which is an increase from the $2 million for the same quarter last year. And what's great about those grants is that it empowers our community groups and it supports them in the way that they need it most. So it's reflecting new funding allocations right across all of the programs, including our community partnership, our environment levy, sports field maintenance, festive and commemorative grants, emergency grants, individual development grants, and our councillor discretionary funding. And I just want to use that as an opportunity for a huge shout out to all of our volunteers that make that stuff happen. It takes a lot of work to fill out the grant applications, so thank you for your work and thank you for the great things that you're doing in our community. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. And councillors, the pride with which you have spoken is really inspiring this morning. It's wonderful. Thank you. I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, team. Thank you, Mr Flanagan. Big morning for you here with us. And with that, we'll take a break for morning tea and return in 15 minutes, which is just after 11:15. So about 11:17 if we're being absolutely precise, but we'll be back in 15 minutes. Good morning. Thanks for returning as we continue through our agenda today. We now welcome Ms Dunbar. Thank you to present the next item, 8.3.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors and council executive team. I'm here to present the financial performance report for October. Please note for the late agenda item on page 3 of 27, in the second table at the bottom of the page, under year-to-date actuals October 2025, the total operating expenses, there is a typographical error. The correct year-to-date actuals should be $228,283. At the end of October 2025, the Council's operating result is an operating surplus of $82.5 million, which is $6.2 million above the current year-to-date budget. The variance is due to revenue being higher than year-to-date budget by $880,000, and operating expenses being lower than year-to-date budget by $5.2 million, and recurrent expenses lower than year-to-date budget by $131,000. Significant revenue variances include net rate, $724,000 below year-to-date budget, fees and charges higher than year-to-date budget by $1.7 million, including holiday parks, $509,000 above budget due to higher than anticipated occupancy rates, combined with the implementation of dynamic prices, have contributed to strong revenue performance. Sunshine Coast Stadium, $337,000. Venue 114, $204,000 as a result of event attendance being better than expected and extra events not originally anticipated. Parks marked parking infringements, $576,000 above budget. Community land permits above budget, $205,000, which is related to development-related temporary road closure permits. Interest received from investments is $306,000 lower than year-to-date budget. Other revenue is $1.8 million higher than year-to-date budget, with notable contributions from revegetation offset revenue, $695,000. Customer response, $321,000 related to spur recoupments and sale of abandoned vehicles. Sunshine Coast Stadium Event Commission, $200,000. Bond recall, $221,000, and lease revenue being above budget, $326,000. Also, internal sales for Quarry is below budget, $1.2 million, which is offset some by $266,000 in external sales. Year-to-date operating expenditure is $5.2 million lower than year-to-date budget, with employee costs $2 million lower than year-to-date budget due to vacancies across council. Core materials and services below budget by $3 million. Key areas contributing to lower than expected spending include quarry expenditure, $1.7 million. This is due to efficiency gains in the new crushing contract and production being ahead of schedule, where some equipment could be shut down earlier than expected, resulting in expenditure for running costs being lower. Property maintenance, $629,000 lower than anticipated budget. This is related to maintenance expenditure. And waste, $772,000 lower than year-to-date budget. Our levy program is currently tracking lower than year-to-date budget by $326,000. Transport levy is $163K lower, and heritage levy $94,000 lower than year-to-date budget. Operating projects are also below budget by $445,000. The total capital works program has progressed 24.7% of total full year budget, with $71.4 million expended, $4.5 million higher than year-to-date budget. The core capital works program has spent $46.6 million, which is $2.3 million higher than year-to-date budget. As at the 31st of October, Council's cash balance, excluding trust, is $246.6 million, with unrestricted cash at $77.2 million and restricted cash at $169.4 million. Council's current debt at the 31st of October is $428 million, and Council's planned new borrowings for 25-26 will total $66.8 million. Council currently has four investments totalling $70 million, with term deposits maturing between 30 and 364 days at a weighted average interest rate of return of 4.17%. In relation to savings initiatives, the vacancy rate target is currently on target based on year-to-date profiling, and the executive leadership team are reviewing strategies to achieve the balance of the savings initiatives. Current risks that are outlined in the report. Management has used its best endeavours and judgment to determine suitable estimates and assumptions based on the available data, with reference to independent sources and relevant historic information where possible. There is a risk that actual results may vary from the estimates, and material variances will be monitored and reported to the Council through the monthly financial performance report and periodical budget reviews. The key elements of the 25-26 budget that are based on the management estimates and assumptions include rates and charges revenue, interest revenue and finance costs, depreciation and recurrent capital expenditure. The 24-25 Statement of Income and Expenses presents the operating result for the 24-25 financial year. So this is comparing the interim results that was reported to Council at the July ordinary meeting based on June 2025 preliminary figures with the final results from the audited financial statements. A complete statement of income and expenses for 24-25 is provided as an attachment to this report, and a full reconciliation of the operating result will be included in item 8.4 of the agenda. And the recommendation today that Council receive and note the report titled October 2025 Financial Performance Report.
Thank you, Ms Dunbar. Councillors, can I have someone to move a motion for that? Councillor Hungerford, seconded Councillor Broderick. Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Good to see that we're getting some positives in this budget here, because we've got a very thin operating result and we've got a lot of headwind in expenses. As of the 31st of October, we have an operating result of $82.5 million, which is $6.2 million, or 82% above the current year-to-date budget. That's a positive. $310 million in operating revenue has been received, which is $880,000 higher than the year-to-date budget. Fees and charges are higher than budget, $1.7 million. Other revenue, $1.8 million higher than budget. $226.7 million in operating expenses have been incurred, which is $5.2 million or 2.2% lower than year-to-date budget. So these are all positives. 71.4 million or 24.7% of our total works budget being expended, which is 4.5 million higher than budget, and we're ahead because of the fine weather this year compared to last year, but that puts pressure on us as far as the budget. The core capital program has expended 46.6 million or 2.3 million, 5.2% higher than the year to date, so we're well ahead in our capital program. And that brings us to our cash balance, which is 246.6 million. Now that's up a bit because we've just had rates in July. That comes down as we spend. And that's made up of unrestricted cash that we have available at 77.2%, and restricted cash can only be spent on certain things. It's 169.4, so our cash balance is very thin considering our budget position. Our debt balance, pleasingly, is still low at 428 million, but we have borrowings to come further in the year. So with that, it is pleasing to see the favourable variance both in revenue and expenditure, putting us ahead of budget in our operating result at this time. It'll be important to lock these savings to improve our forecast financial result this year. We've only got a very thin positive operating result. This is all helpful to help us get a more balanced position in our budget, but we've got a long way to go and we've got to keep that focus through the rest of the year. Our capital program is progressing well, as I said, with the fine weather, but that brings me to the concerning thing. I see that our borrowing application process has commenced to top up our cash reserves to deliver on our program. This is the first time in my 22 years as a councillor I've seen us have to do this, and that is concerning going into the future. And it's also disappointing to see the final audited result for 24-25 financial year shows an increase in the operating deficit, which further emphasises the need for council to find savings and focus on building a priority-based budget for 26-27, which I'll be covering in the next item in more detail. And I'll leave it for there because there's a lot of meat in that one there. We're doing positively here at the moment. There's tight controls on our expenditure and where we're heading. We do have slight gains there, but they're only small compared to where we're heading into the future. We've got the headwinds of the increased costs of construction and delivering out there. And I'll cover that in the next item as well as what the increases were in 24-25. And we're going into the same this year. So it's going to take a very tall focus because in our budget deliberations for the 26-27 budget, it's going to be critical that we get this correct going into the future, and I'll cover that more down in the next item, but we are in a good result. It's only a thin operating result we have this year. We have positives there and favourable variances, only small, but they all help. But we've got to continue those into the year and keep that tight focus we have on there. And our financial staff and our team in ELT and delivering these projects and keeping a very tight focus on our expenditure is much appreciated. We need to keep that into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Johnston.
I'm happy for Jenny. No, sorry. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, interest received from investments, 306,000 lower than budget. Is that likely to be a trend for the rest of the year, or are we expecting to have a much better situation in the future?
So through the chair, it is all kind of based on the interest rates that we do receive for our investments. I expect that it probably is a trend that we will be under on our full year budget. So at the time of building the budget, we did base our interest on investments on an interest rate of 4.87%. So the weighted average that we had for October was at 4.17%.
Yeah, and the interest that we receive is at the end of the term, it's not monthly. Yeah, right. This is something that I talked about during the budget deliberations for the year, in that I felt that the interest received figure was somewhat higher than what it should be, but be that as it may. Now, I'd just like to say, in relation to our capital expenditure program, I'm really happy to see that in our capital expenditure program that we're ahead of budget. mainly because of the weather, but also I think there's a lot of good planning that goes into making sure that happens. And if you're not ahead at this time of year, if you get to a wet season, that can be of great advantage. And Councillor Ted mentioned about the 24-25 statement of income and expenditure, and the fact that we had an increased deficit. I'd just like to make people who aren't in this room aware that the most of that related to the understatement of depreciation in the previous budget, and it's good to see that we've owned up to it and made the necessary adjustments. However, I'd just like to say, if it wasn't for the fact that during the year we deferred or reduced expenditure by $52 million during the year, and we faced up to that, we'd really be in huge trouble. So I'd just like to congratulate all involved, and there was quite a bit of pain for, I think, every division was affected by it, and the ratepayers have been magnificent in how they've accepted it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Aaron, for bringing us this report. Just following on, actually, from what Councillor Winston was saying, and we talked about, the annual audited reports from last financial year that we're just about to be talking about. The news there is a little grim, but this monthly report is a reflection of the intentional hard work Council continues with to ensure our finances get to where they need to be. And I just wanted to take this as an opportunity as well to thank everyone who's been involved in making that happen, because these have been difficult decisions. It includes all departments right across the organisation doing their part and making some really tough calls. We know it's not been easy, and we know there are still some hard decisions to make as we continue to prepare for the next budgets ahead. And these hard decisions are being made now to ensure that we can continue to deliver the services our community expects into the future. So I just wanted to thank everybody for their hard work in that space as well. Ted's talked about a lot of the figures as well, so thank you, Ted. And whilst, like he said, whilst it's pleasing to see the favourable variance in both our revenue and expenditure, it's going to be really important for us to look at locking those savings in to improve our forecast financial result this year. And just following on from what Councillor Winston was saying about the capital works as well, I just wanted to thank the teams for all the work in getting that done, because we're already ahead, like you said, and that's because of the incredible work of our teams. So I just wanted to put a shout out there too, Madam Mayor. So, said tough decisions ahead, but we're on our way to delivering a responsible and sustainable financial future for our region. So it's good to start seeing that happen this month. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Look, appreciate the conversation that we've had today about some of the figures. I think some of the observations for me are important around the long-term financial sustainability of council. Probably the most important aspect is another year of a operating deficit. And I understand Councillor Johnston's feedback around the causes of that in the last financial year, but this, there's a saying, the trend is the friend, and this is actually not a friend of councils at the moment. We have a trend of delivering operating deficits, which essentially means we're spending more than we are generating from a revenue perspective. And you can't escape that over 5 of the last 6 years. So we have to be very honest with the community about the expectations that we have to set, whether it's from service delivery or from infrastructure delivery as well. And no one likes having those conversations. No one likes having to say that we are running out of money. But the reality is that as an organisation that receives most of its revenue from general rates, there are only so many levers that you can pull to find more revenue without starting to hurt people financially. So we are in a very wicked problem. We're a high growth region with people coming to the Sunshine Coast demanding more infrastructure, but we're also a high service region in terms of the services that we provide to the community. And I think it's really for us to start thinking about ways that we can do things differently, whether that's in service delivery or whether it's in capital program delivery. And one of the examples that I have is in my own division, which was the South Pulham Road footpath, which was delivered between Scotland Street and Warwick Street. And the initial costings for that were upwards and beyond of $1.2 million. The planners, the road reseal team got together and said, we can find a different way to actually deliver this. We can deliver this internally. And we've found a modest saving of $75,000 from delivery. And that $75,000 can be used to top up other projects. You know, $75,000 these days funds you a very modest park refresh somewhere, which is an important thing that people like to see happen. So thinking about the way that we do things differently on one particular capital project across a $256 million capital program is really, really important. It's also about, I guess, thinking long-term about the fact that, yes, we are ahead of our capital delivery program, and I think our officers should be commended for that, but it's also something for our executive team, who I know will be closely watching this, given the fact that my recollection of our budget deliberations is that we had a deliverability factor of plus minus 10% of our capital program. So, yes, it's great that we're actually ahead in terms of delivery, but in terms of our financial metrics, being too far ahead at the end of the year actually has significant financial consequences for our cash position. So it's something to be mindful of. We are not in a position where we're throwing money around like confetti, I think it's fair to say. I was at a Residents Association meeting the other night, and I had a number of requests from the floor that night for a pedestrian crossing, some SAMs, and also for some sightline treatments. And residents were saying to me, I hear you're in a bad financial position. And I said very bluntly, well, in the last 5 minutes, you've requested about $350,000 worth of infrastructure projects. And that's in one community. So we have to have some very tough, honest discussions with people about what we can and can't deliver and why. And it's really about keeping the lights on long term so that we can deliver the projects where they're needed in a prioritised fashion that's equitably done throughout the region. So I commend this report and would encourage other people in the community to look closely at the data that's contained within it.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Hungerford, would you like to close?
Through you, Madam Mayor. We're at a good start to the year. We need to keep this momentum going for the rest of the year and keep a close eye on it, because the other complicating factor we have the increase in costs of delivering the services and doing capital works. That's the construction index, and that runs consistently higher than general CPI. And we're also a fast-growing region. We're growing at, what, 2.7% a year? That's about 8,000 people. We've got to keep up with that as well as try and keep a tight lid on our finances. So it is a difficult financing act. I think you wanted to answer me then, but no. Yeah, but I think I was pretty close. I was trying to remember the figures exactly, but they'd be very close. But that high growth puts pressure on us to deliver as well as balance a budget. So it isn't easy, and we are off to a good start. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford, and thank you, councillors all, for identifying and articulating the difficulties and tough decisions ahead that we have. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we move on now to item 8.4. And thank you and welcome Ms Wex to present this item.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm here to present last year's financial results for 24-25, the audited financial statements. So the financial statements have been audited by the Queensland Audit Office once again, and for the 17th year in a row, they have issued an unmodified audit opinion for our financial statements. So this means our statements give a true and fair view of Council's financial position, financial performance and cash flows for the year, and that they comply with the Local Government Act, Local Government Regulation and the Australian Accounting Standards. Our financial results, along with the other 77 local governments, or 76 in Queensland, will be recorded in the annual report to Parliament on the results of local government audits. So I'm providing a reconciliation back to the net result, just for your information. Now, the net result can be found on the Statement of Comprehensive Income, and it shows we have a positive net result of $150 million. Now, to get to the operating result, we have to deduct anything that's considered non-recurrent. So we have non-recurrent revenue of $187.66 million there. That is made up of contributed assets from developers, so not cash. Also infrastructure charges, which is cash from developers, and a couple of other capital grants which are related to assets that we build. Non-recurrent expenses, they're things like the change in the waste provision, not too much there. So that gives us an operating deficit of $38 million. Now, according to the new financial sustainability guidelines, there are a couple of items that are to be excluded from that, and that's interest on leases. So we have leases on software servers and cars and things like that, so that's what that's made up of. And depreciation on right-of-use assets, same thing. They're our leases on cars, software, etc. So that brings our operating deficit back to $34.481 million. Now, this is similar to what Sharon provided earlier with the financial performance report. It's a reconciliation back to the interim June result that you would have received in July as part of the monthly management reports. So in that report, we had an operating deficit of $28.9 million. Now, our year-end adjustments make sure that we account for everything relating to the financial year in that year. So obviously invoices come in after 30th of June, so that's contained in that $6.4 million of year-end accruals. We also have to make sure all of our employee costs are recognised for the year, even though payday does not necessarily fall on 30th of June, so that's in that $6.4 million as well. Now, the biggest adjustments you can see there is there's one for $2 million, which is an increase in our depreciation expense compared to our original forecast. And then we found some contributed assets that had not yet been recognised, and we had to calculate an estimate of depreciation on those of another $1.3 million. That brought us to the $38 million operating deficit we talked about earlier. Take off the adjustments that are required and we're back to the 34.4. As part of the agenda report that you have, we also have the Queensland Audit Office Final Management Report. Now, that provides details on any outstanding audit matters, as well as a summary of issues that they've raised during the course of the audit, as well as issues that they've raised in prior years that haven't yet been resolved. There's a list of those. I'll actually get to it on the next slide. Yes, I will. Sorry, I'll go back again and finish this one. So whenever we receive something that's addressed to Madam Mayor from the Queensland Audit Office, it must be presented to the next ordinary meeting of Council. So here we are. Now, back to the summary of audit issues. So the Queensland Audit Office classify their issues as either significant deficiencies, which means we must take immediate action to resolve them, deficiencies or moderate financial reporting issues, which means we need to take action in a timely manner, or an other matter, which is a suggested business improvement opportunity, and that can be implemented at management's discretion. So with the significant deficiencies, they've elevated 3 deficiencies to significant relating to asset data and systems, because the auditors considered we've had these issues for a while now, not enough is happening, so they're asking us to resolve them in a timely manner. There's another deficiency held over deficiency held over relating to assets as well, and these are still in progress, not yet resolved. In terms of the deficiencies, as you can see, we've had 3 resolved, 1 partially resolved, 6 resolved pending audit clearance. Now, those 6 related to IT controls. QAO will check that they're resolved to their satisfaction at their next visit, and 4 in progress still to be resolved, and 1 other matter which we consider as resolved, and the Queensland Audit Office will check at the next visit. As well as the financial statements, we prepare a community financial report, which is an easy to understand version of the financial statements. Now that's provided as part of the annual report, as are the financial statements. Council's 3 controlled entities, Sun Central Maroochy Proprietary Limited, Sunshine Coast Events Centre and Sunshine Coast Arts Foundation, also had their financial statements audited by the Queensland Audit Office, and all 3 controlled entities received unmodified audit opinions for their financial statements. Now, once we have their annual reports, they'll be published on Council's website. We have 2 already, so you should see those soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Wex. Councillors, can I have someone move the motion for this item? Councillor Hungerford, seconded Councillor Broderick. Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I may need extensions here because I'm going to do a bit of explaining. It's good to see that we get another unmodified audit that says that what's presented to the QAO is materially correct in every way and everything's there. It doesn't necessarily say it's good, it says it's correct. And they've always had those correct figures, but at councillors we were presented a different case, and as Winston pointed out, because of the underreporting of depreciation, we were given a more favourable environment on a budget that looked more balanced, and in fact the last five of the last 6 were in deficit. So that's what we've inherited as a council because of that misreporting on depreciation expense. Now, when you look at the audited papers, we're looking at a $38 million deficit, and after adjustment, 34 million, or 34.5. That's not sustainable. Then you look at the breakdown of expenses. Employee benefits are 29.4%, or 195 million. Now we've got enterprise bargaining negotiations coming up, and as you've seen in the media, unions are always pushing for way above CPI increases, and that's not sustainable either. So that's a headwind we've got to face into the future as well. Materials and services are 43% of our expenditure. That's delivering the services out there and delivering the things people want. That accounts for 285.7 million. And then you've got depreciation and amortisation. That's 25%, or 1/4 of our total expenditure. So just those 3 together is 97.5%. Finance costs is only 1.9%, because we do have a low debt environment at the moment, but that's under threat into the future. So that comes to about 647 million. So then you look over at the income equation. Rates and utility charges, 69.7, nearly 70% of our total income. But if you break the utilities and charges away from rates, rates actually comes in at 316.9, nearly 317 million, or 50.6% of our total income. You start to see the picture when you put that against our expenditure. Because when you look at it, our capital works in 24-25 was 243.4 million, and this year it's 262 million. That's not sustainable either. When you look at the income levels. And if you look at our assets that we have to manage, 8.7 billion is what it's worked out in here after you take liabilities away. If you look at it over the years, that means those assets have grown 3.5 billion, or 40.2% in 3 years. That goes on to that depreciation schedule, your maintenance and renewals and the expenditure in your budget. You start adding these together, it shows why things are not sustainable. But in that same time, if rates are only 317 million of our total income, or 50.6%, they've only grown 37% over the same period. That's a lower base and a higher asset base coming in that has to be managed. And what compounds that is when development's happening, we're growing at a high rate. 2.7%, about 8,000 people a year. The infrastructure charging on development is capped by the state government, so we're limited on what we can charge. That came in about 2015 from memory. In about 2022, they realised with no CPI added to that, the deficit was growing. And it affects the viability of not only this council, but all local governments. I think even your water entities are in the same boat. So we're getting this bigger gap on the infrastructure being collected. Since then, they've only applied CPI to the increases each year, and the construction index is much higher than CPI, so the gap is still growing. So much, in fact, this year we're having to borrow because the LGIP program isn't sufficient to deliver the things out there we need to deliver, especially with the Olympics coming up and roadworks and everything else. So now, I've never been happy with the fact that ratepayers have been subsidising growth because of that gap in what they collect in the infrastructure payments, but now the gap's becoming so great we're starting to have to borrow for it. That is not sustainable either.
Councillor, would you like an extension of time? Thank you. Councillor Natoli moved, seconded. Councillor Broderick, hang on. We'll vote to give you the extension of time. Please, yes, if we're voting, yes, that is councillors. Oh, are you putting your hand up? Yes, thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Hungerford.
Why I'm doing this in detail so the community can understand out there, a lot of this is not our creation. It's what we're going to have to deal with. Because what we need to do to balance this out, we can't keep carrying those sort of deficits. We need to reduce our operational expenditure, our capital expenditure. We can't keep expanding the capital works. And we need to increase our revenue as well at the same time. That means we're going to have to make some difficult decisions. We've got to make responsible decisions to ensure we get long-term sustainability. And debt is not the way to achieve that. Actually, debt's contrary to getting sustainable. So these are the conversations we've got over their community, because ultimately, at the end of the day, they are the ones that are going to pay. Because this budget we've got coming up that we're setting, the 25, 20, 26, 27, 27, 28, those two budgets are going to be critical into us achieving long-term financial sustainability. Because I feel if we do not get this correct, that could lead to 10% plus rate rises being an annual event, and that's not sustainable either. So I just want this community to understand we're going to have to reduce expenditure and what we're doing to make it long-term affordable for the community to live here and for rates to be stable. So that means we're going to have some honest conversations and have the community realise there has to be some belt tightening and reductions in expenditure. We can't keep spending at this rate. Not with the increase in expenses, and that deficiency in the infrastructure charging that's imposed by the state seriously needs to be looked at, because that's impinging on every local government's ability to balance their expenditure out and actually deliver the things the community needs. And I believe the water entities are in the same boat. That, on top of the construction index being high and the runaway costs on delivering the actual services and delivering the capital works out there, is something not only we're facing, but every local government. But we're going to have to really look at seriously having the community understand there has to be some reduction in expenditure to maintain sustainability, and that's the message I'm trying to get there today. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a gloomy thing, but I believe we can get there, we can get to sustainability. We just need some courage in making the responsible decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford, for listing that out so clearly. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the people who are watching online and maybe some of the media don't really understand why the situation is the way that it is. And, you know, basically, why is it important that we have surplus budgets? And what happens when we have a deficit budget? So basically, Local government and state and federal governments are not like a business. In a business, you depreciate your assets and it's a tax deduction. We don't pay tax. And then on the other side, in business, you reduce the asset base that you have by that amount, right? But in local government, what happens is when you have depreciation, that depreciation is used or should be used for repairs, maintenance and replacement of capital assets. So that's where we're different to private enterprise. And what's the consequence of having significant or having deficit budgets each year? The consequence is that your available cash that you've built up, your reserve, in unallocated cash is reduced every year. And we've got to the situation where we can't allow that to happen anymore. And this year we're trying to take remedial action to make sure that we will have the required available cash of, was it 2 months revenue? Yep. So as Ted says, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. And unfortunately, I think all of us as councillors, particularly the ones that have been here this term and last term, were astounded when we suspected there were some problems. We were astounded to find that our asset base in a few years had grown by 40%, but our depreciation rate had really not increased. Now, that's as much our fault as councillors for not picking up on that as it is the fault of the people who presented that information previously. And I'd just like to say, I'm really pleased that both our CEO, John Baker, and our Chief Financial Officer, Keith Parsons, joined this organisation and picked up on all that sort of stuff. And they didn't hide it. They actually told us how it was. So, and we, as a council, decided, you know, this can't go on. We have to remedy the situation. And that's why the proposed surplus this year is only $711,000, which is wafer thin. We may go into deficit this year, but we will be taking action in BR2 and to make sure that that doesn't significantly impact on us. So I'd just like to thank the Finance Department and the CEO for telling us as it really is and alerting us to these facts. We're councillors, we're not financial gurus, much as some councillors like to think. But the reality of the situation is we are working very hard with our council officers to remedy the situation so that in the future years it gets better and not worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. And yes, we decided as councillors that this can't go on. We also decided to be open with our community and make that information available to the public as well. I have a question, and it's probably best to the CFO, Mr. Parsons, I think. The report mentions a number of significant deficiencies, I think 4. Could you explain for us what those significant deficiencies are and how they come to be?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Those deficiencies principally relate to our treatment and management of assets. They relate to the data and the systems we have to collect and value our assets. They relate to the processes that we have for revaluing our assets on a periodic basis, which we're required to do under the accounting standards. They relate to the challenges we have collecting data on contributed assets from new development and other infrastructure delivered in the region that we don't control, but those assets come to us at the conclusion, and they might be delivered by the Department of Transport and Main Roads. They might be delivered through Economic Development Queensland in the priority development areas that they are responsible for. So there's a range of areas there. The other one relates to the again, some of our asset data and the historic assets that we hadn't recorded at the time. We didn't have good information on that. So principally, all of these matters go to the heart of the challenge in calculating our depreciation accurately without good asset data. So they are significant problems and will require some time and effort to resolve, but I'm pleased to say that we accepted and agreed with all of the recommendations from the Queensland Audit Office. We've already started work on remedying those deficiencies in there, and the progress on the action to remedy those deficiencies will be monitored regularly through our Independent Audit Committee, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Parsons. One more question. Are these significant deficiencies, are they new to us or have they been long-standing issues? Can you explain a little?
Most of those significant deficiencies were recorded as deficiencies, but they have been recorded as deficiencies for nearly 3 years now. So the Queensland Audit Office have formed a view that they're not satisfied with the progress we've made on those matters. So in this year, they've elevated the importance or the significance of those matters from deficiencies that require attention to significant deficiencies that require immediate attention.
And are you confident now that the processes are in place to resolve those deficiencies?
I am, Madam Mayor, with the support of the CEO and our executive. These problems aren't just ones for the Finance Department. They affect processes right across the organisation, and they affect some of our key customers and stakeholders that we work with as a local government, particularly during this growth phase that we are at council. So, we have support of all of the key stakeholders. We're all on the same page to address these matters. We're putting in resources and priority to do that. It will take some time, Madam Mayor, so, but certainly I expect to see good progress by the time we're having the same discussion next year.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr Parsons. Continuing, Councillor Broderick, it's over to you to speak.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think most has been covered, so thank you, Keith, for answering those questions, because a lot of what we've talked about today and over the last year has been about asset management, and I know that it's a topic that we talk about in Audit Committee a lot as well, so I'm really pleased to see the work that we've already started in there. So thank you, and thank you for your work. Also, just while I'm standing as well, just wanted to recognise that this is it has been a difficult situation, like we have spoken about already with the financial report, but I just wanted to put a thank you out to our exec team and staff who have worked really hard at finding more efficient ways for us to be able to still do what we do and do it well, because we know that there's been a huge amount of stress and tough decisions made in that as well. So what does this mean for us? We've talked about the risks, we've talked about all the things that we need to be focusing on for the next lot of budgets, which we're looking forward to getting into, and we've even started with looking at the reprioritisation of our 114 services, which was a really difficult task. So I'm really pleased that we were able to get that task happening as well with our community groups as well, just to find out how they would put those in order of priority, because it was a really difficult task to do about what are the most important services for our community and what those priorities are. So while the audit outcome is positive, is what the paper says, our asset renewal is strong, but something that we're working on as far as our assets go. There are pressures that require decisive action, and we know that work has already begun. Our priority is to ensure responsible financial sustainability through thoughtful and intentional planning, and I just want to thank Keith and his team for making sure that that's already happening. We're working to ensure that we have a clear, direct path to financial sustainability so we can continue to serve and support our ever-growing region in the best way possible. And I just want to do a shout out for the Community Financial Report. It's in the back of the annual report as well. So cracking read. So, so it lays all of our finances out easily to read for the community. So I'd encourage you all to go and have a look at that as well. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. And now the councillor to close. Would you like to close? Councillor Hungerford.
Madam Mayor, I would like to also reflect the appreciation councillors have, the CEO, the Chief Financial Officer and the ELT for bringing us the facts and not giving us a sugar-coated version of anything. We need to know the facts. We had to make an informed decision. Pity we didn't have that a few years ago. But I do appreciate that, and I'm sure all councillors do. This time we're looking at up to 66 million in a drawdown facility to keep our operations going. I think 15 of that's for LGIP, where the infrastructure contributions are deficient for us to do the things we need to do at the moment, but we've got to work very hard in the future getting away from needing to rely on loan funds to get us through. We've got to get back to having a spending program that reflects our income levels to make us more sustainable, and that's where I want us to see us go in the future. And I'm sure we can get there. It's going to take some tough decisions. It's going to take some honest, and I'm already having those conversations with my community about the realities and what can be afforded, because I don't want to see us have double-digit rate rises into the future, because that's not sustainable either. So let's work together and let's get there for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, team. Thank you for that. We move on now to item 8.5, and we welcome Mr. Nick Cooney to present this item to us. Thank you, Mr. Cooney.
Good afternoon, councillors. I'm here to present the South Maroochy Drainage Board Review Report. The purpose of this report is for Council to provide direction on the proposed arrangements to manage Council's future interactions with the South Maroochy Drainage Board and stormwater drainage issues in the defined South Maroochy drainage area. Now, the presentation will address the South Maroochy drainage area, the South Maroochy Drainage Board, and the funding responsibilities relating to the drain management and maintenance. Whoops. So the location under consideration, as referred to before, the South Maroochy drainage area, is shown in the diagram there, and it currently is made up of two pieces, the non-urban and the urban. So the non-urban land is that part of the South Maroochy drainage area where the South Maroochy Drainage Board has jurisdiction, certain responsibilities and certain authorities and certain powers to manage the maintenance of drains, etc. The urban land, which is upstream of the Yandina-Blvd Road, is now under the ownership and management of Council. And the assets there came naturally to Council through the development process. There was no formal agreement with the South Maroochy Drainage Board. It was purely that as development took place, part of that is that the assets are handed to Council and Council took over the responsibilities for looking after the drainage matters there. So Blvd's Park Lakes Developments is just above in that pink area, which gives another indication of the location of the main area that rests with the board. Approximately 65% of the original drainage area is now in blue with the board. Drainage from the South Maroochy drainage area and that which feeds into it flows into the Maroochy River in the northeast corner of that diagram. So the non-urban land is the focus of this report, and there'll be very little reference to the urban land from here. So the drainage system in the South Maroochy drainage area was developed to support cane farming going back some time. And originally there were 6.5 kilometres of constructed drains, major drains, and 10.5 kilometres of subsidiary or tributary drains feeding into that. So the major drain fed to the river and the subsidiary drains then fed into that major drain. The controlled release of impounded waters from cane fields was developed way back and is still in place today, where impounded water can be released through floodgates strategically located in bunds along the sides of the drains. It should be noted too that the drainage capacity or the drain capacity within the South Maroochy drainage area, non-urban, is very limited. It only has about a Q2, 1 in 2 year average return interval immunity from flood. So the major floods or larger floods than that tend to spread out from the drains and exhibit overland flow throughout the South Maroochy drainage area. Works on the drains are generally undertaken by property owners with the South Maroochy Drainage Board oversight. So then the South Maroochy Drainage Board, or its predecessor, was a swamp drainage syndicate, came into being in 1977 under a state government order in council under the Water Act of 1926. So the head of power to the board now resides under the Water Act 2000. And under that Water Act, the Drainage Board is now a Category 2 water authority. And it has powers to make and levy rates and charges in respect of the drainage area and to resume land. And it has authority, but that authority is limited by agreement of the individual property owners to go and do work on those drains. So to undertake that, they need the consent of the property owner. And the board, when it comes to development upstream, it has submission powers, but it doesn't have a role or entitlement as an assessment manager and no formal right to assess any development application or to impose conditions. But it can act on the property owner's behalf through putting submissions into council for consideration. So under working with the maintenance of the drains, the board saw the need to continue doing so, but were faced with state government position where, because the area in the non-urban area drains were subject to tidal influence, tidal lands come under the purview of the state government. And they are very keen to protect fish habitat, to protect the flora and associated values that go with that. So state government approval is then required to be able to undertake maintenance on those drains to ensure that those values and the fish habitat and so on are protected. And it's quite a task then for someone like the board or an organisation or an entity like the board to apply to the state to have permission to undertake maintenance works on the drains. So rather than apply each and every time they want to do work on the drains, there's a way they can get a blanket approval, and that's through applying for a ministerial infrastructure designation. So the board did that, and in 2023, they received a ministerial infrastructure designation that has a life of approximately 6 years. So that takes away the need to apply each and every time, but in itself, complying with the designation is still quite an onerous task and significantly adds to the cost of doing maintenance on the drains. So that leads to funding then. So funding is a critical component of this report, and again, the drain maintenance into the future will be a costly business. So the report looks to identify council's responsibilities and to protect ratepayers' needs and requirements and limit the call on ratepayers' funds where not required. So council has accepted the basis for not funding the board activities in the future will come through the dot points listed. So council has accepted its maintenance responsibility and associated costs for drainage in the urban areas. So that part of the South Maroochy drainage area that came across to Council, Council has readily fulfilled its responsibilities there. The protection of downstream property owners was taken into consideration by Council through the development assessment process, and the approvals that were given to developers took recognition of protection of downstream property owners' needs. So then Council's limited level of investment over the last 15 years is indicative of its limited involvement in drain management, and the report lists very limited expenditure by Council in that regard. So within the legislation, there's no legislation that places an obligation on Council. There's no formal agreement between Council and the Board that has a funding obligation on Council. That leads to a lack of justification for expenditure of ratepayer funds, and such expenditure would not pass financial audit review. So the report recognises also that the Board is an autonomous body established by legislation that provides for it to raise its own revenue. So while expenditure by Council to date has been limited, it's important to adopt a clear policy going forward to manage and to avoid involvement in funding costly drainage works that are stipulated by the ministerial infrastructure designation. So the report's recommendations establish a responsible policy position for Council into the future. The recommendations for Council's consideration to receive and note the report, and then to have the CEO write to the South Maroochy Drainage Board and the Minister for Local Government and Water, addressing the following. So, to confirm Council's recognition of the Board as a separate and independent entity, advise that Council supports whatever entity the Board may wish to operate into the future, whether that be a Category 2 water authority or a closed water activity agreement, which is another option open to the Board. The Minister would be advised that funding of drain upgrades and maintenance activities undertaken by the South Maroochy Drainage Board is the responsibility of the Board, and to advise that Council is under no obligation to provide funding to the South Maroochy Drainage Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Cooney. And Councillor Suarez, you wish to move this, and a seconder is Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the very detailed report, Mr Cooney. I've written some notes, but I think I can throw them away. You've covered pretty much everything. Firstly, I'd just like to start by acknowledging the important role that the landowners have played in this area over many decades. Their efforts have supported agriculture, and at the time it was one of the most important industries here on the Sunshine Coast. As Mr Cooney mentioned, the board was formed back in 1977, and the reason it was formed was because the landowners needed a way that they could work together for the collective benefit of all of the owners there for cane farming. And so that was about protecting their livelihoods and ensuring that the land could be used effectively. But over time, things have changed. Urban development, the closure of the mill, and shifts in land use. There are many lifestyle residents out in there rather than farmers. And all of these impacts have affected how the board operates. And we know that these have affected individual landowners directly. So while over the last 15 years the board has invested around $85,000 in maintaining the drains, we acknowledge that that's a significant effort to keep the system working for everyone. The ministerial infrastructure designation to make the approval process easier has come with the maybe not unintended consequences, but the onerous obligations with complying with the attached conditions. The current challenge still remains that the drain maintenance is the responsibility of both the board and the individual property owners. We know that can be challenging, especially when it comes to funding. However, the works have traditionally been managed in partnership with the landowners and the board, agreeing on what was needed, where and when it needed to be done. Work was undertaken by the landowners themselves, and at other times the board provided investment. Collaboration had been the key. The board can apply levies and charges to the landowners for drain maintenance. However, since 2009 to 2010, since 2009-2010, only about $2,569 has been collected this way. They do have some additional revenue, and that is in the form of coming from cash reserves and investments. However, this funding strategy makes planning for the required work difficult for the board. The board has expressed an interest in changing its structure, going from a Category 2 water authority to a closed water activity agreement. This decision has pros and cons and is ultimately a decision for the board to make. Council respects that, and to support the board, we have in the resolution here, Part B, Item 2, that we would support whatever entity the board wishes to operate to be. So in summary, this officer's recommendation that is before the council today is about clarifying the board's authority and setting out how council will work with the board in the future. Our goal is to maintain transparency and keep working together in a way that respects landowners' needs and ensures that the system continues to function. And I look for my fellow councillors' support.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it's great to see you back, Nick. But I would like to say that Nick Cooney is probably the only person within the council organisation who has the detailed knowledge that he has in relation to this subject, as well as many others. So it's great to see you back to help us out on this particular issue. I've been here for the last 5.5 years, and I must admit, at no stage did anybody ever tell me that there's such a thing as the South Maroochy Drainage Board Review. It might have been referred to in passing, but nobody ever explained to me what it was. And that's understandable because we haven't had a report for some years either. I'd just like to ask one question. Apart from that, I'd like to thank you very much for the detailed work and the recommendation that you presented us with. I want to ask you one question. On page 4, drainage system, we're going to bring that up, please. That's the one. Yep. Could you explain for me, please, what the different colours on the drainage lines are? There's a light blue, a dark blue, a sort of a faded blue, and then there's teal. So if you'd just like to explain what they all are, I'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. That's on the eastern side of the road. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. The drawing itself was pulled together to show the drainage system as the title says. The thicker lines are the major drain, and the thinner ones, of course, are the tributary or the subsidiary drains that feed to that. But the colours, this was taken from one of the attachments to the report, and there was a legend that came with that, and I'm trying to recall all the things that are in that legend, you see. So the heavy blue line running almost parallel with Yandina Bly Road is the blue heart boundary, right. Not a drain. The red broken line is the extent of the South Maroochy drainage area altogether, but all I can say is that the dominant lines for the drains are the major drain, and the others are the subsidiary drains.
Right. Well, a subsequent question to that in that case. The Drainage Board, they maintain what lines? The light blue, or the ones that feed off it, or the whole thing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the drain line shown there would come under the authority of the board to maintain with the property owners. They must have property owner permission to enter and have works done, or liaise to have the property owner carry out the works. So, I take your point. There's other lines there that come into play, but if we just focus on that, the dominance of the lines there, but all of those drainage lines on the downstream side of Yandina Blvd Road are for the Drainage Board to maintain.
I thank you very much for that explanation. That helps a great deal.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Landsberg now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions first, if I may. Just in the report, Nick, and good to see you back in the chamber again. It's great to have your extensive experience and knowledge, and you're a great support in my first term at council. Just understanding the, I suppose, the ministerial infrastructure designation and the decisions of the South Maroochy Drainage Board, and that entity in regards to, you said that they don't have any obligations to for developments, but they can actually be a party for a submission to any developments within that area. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that's correct, Councillor. As any other property owner or representative of a property owner can put a submission into council around development applications as council considers that application.
And just to recognise, this area sits in the Blue Heart, and also there was a previous development application in this location. Were they submitted to obviously the direction or the intent of the Blue Heart and also that proposed development application? The development application I was referring to is Park Lakes 3.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I don't know for sure. I can only say that I'd be surprised if they hadn't, but I can't say categorically that they did.
And in relation to the board's intentions, I know in the report it just touches on there was external consultation. A meeting was held on the 29th of January 2025 at the Blvd Church Hall. There's no minutes in regards to what that meeting obviously involved. We're not quite sure the intention, what the board in regards to what they'd like to see for the rollout of maintaining these drains. And for me, I'm just trying to understand where this direction sits, because I know it's only limited by a couple of property owners that sit on that board.
Through you, Madam Mayor. That meeting you refer to at the Blvd Hall, I had arranged for that meeting. I invited the board to come along and explain that I was looking for background information around the maintenance of the drains in the South Maroochy Drainage Board and area, all the things that go with that. I took notes at the meeting. I provided those notes to the board for their consideration and endorsement. There was not agreement on what I recorded and what they wished to sign off on. So they are not considered minutes, but for mine, they are a record of the discussions at that meeting.
And so currently, I think there's been a request to council to obviously look after an invoice that's been sent to council to pay. Is that correct?
There was an invoice sent to council and a response has been provided formally under council letterhead to the board saying that pardon me, that invoice will not be paid. And the reasoning given was pretty well the same as those reasons that were why it's recommended that council don't fund the board in future activities.
Okay, thank you. I may just speak to the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, this is a huge report in regards to a small amount of money that they're looking at for council to pay an invoice. I mean, we spend that type of money, and I won't say the amount, it's quite low, but we spend that type of money defending trip hazards in council. And, you know, when I look at priorities for areas that I know it's a responsibility of drainage for these property owners here, but I have a question or a comment that potentially the South Maroochy Drainage Board may have a different view of what they see the Blue Heart moving forward in the future, and how, I suppose, as part of the coastal hazard strategy and what they see this area becoming. And a couple of things that I just would like to just make a comment in regards to, and in this very room, only a week ago, we had a planning officer from Economic Development Queensland. And we talk about a lot of the drainage in the Blue Heart, especially around an international airport. We're looking at increasing fish habitat. But we know, and that comment that was made in this chamber last week was that birds and planes don't mix. And we're looking at encouraging fish habitat. We've seen an increase in bird strikes at the Sunshine Coast International Airport over the last 5 years. That airport has now become the fastest growing airport in Australia, where now obviously you've got flights going to Bali and Singapore. And I won't get off track, but I just wanted to raise the concerns. I know that the airport have issues with tidal flaps that they are having around the airport, where obviously drainage issues are a concern. We've obviously seen the development of the Coolum Industrial Park up there as well. So we're looking at a stage 2 expansion of going from 11.8 hectares to 18 hectares. And I've always been quite vocal about the Blue Heart and around the growth of the Sunshine Coast, but it does concern me that there may be opportunities north of the Maroochy River for potential growth and development. And I'm not talking in areas that could not take it if it's severe flooding areas, but we have seen applications come to council that potentially could accommodate growth and housing developments. And I just see this report as taking away, I suppose, the power of a board that's had state support for, I believe, over 40 years. Is that correct?
Since 1977.
Since 1977. So you'd like to think these long-term property owners know a little bit about how they'd like to see their cane land or former cane land properties used in the future. Reluctantly, I won't be supporting the officer's recommendation today. I just want to state that. And that's probably just a couple of the reasons behind my concerns for this report. And I'll leave it to my fellow councillors to speak. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Bunnag.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you, Mr Cooney, do we have an idea of the financial amount that has been contributed by landholders to the South Maroochy Drainage Board in the last 5 or 10 years?
Mayor, in the report, and I'll just find where that is, I listed the revenue stream for the board. Based on the board's annual financial statements, and I'm reading off page 14 of my report, $2,569 has been collected from rates and charges since 2009-10. So only about $2,500 raised by the board at that time. In that same period, $87,477 was spent, and so there. And Council made a payment to the board in March 2010 of $27,391.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr Cooney. Through Chair, I might just now speak to the motion. I guess hearing Councillor Landsberg's comments, this actually isn't about the Blue Heart. This is about the future of the South Maroochy Drainage Board and Council's contributions to it. When we were talking about the issue of shorebirds, I recall distinctly the conversation about we shouldn't be getting into matters of state interest that are not the responsibility of council. And that was the justification of some people not to support the shorebird conservation plan. And here we are with a proposal which recognises the separate and distinct entity that the South Maroochy Drainage Board is, provides them with all the necessary tools that they have in their toolkit to actually levy charges on their landholders to maintain drainage for their benefit. And apparently we shouldn't be endorsing that because of some reason to do with the Blue Heart. When we've just talked about budget, we've talked about financial pressures and what council can and can't fund. The reality is that this is not taking away this entity. This is about clearly defining council's obligations to this entity to manage drainage in this area for their benefit and for the landholders' benefit. And when we talk about flood mitigation works north of the Maroochy River. That is to enable development at places like the airport. I will talk about that for days, and I'm really stoked that this council wants to talk about that in detail, because absolutely, when you develop on floodplains, you need a hell of a lot of drainage mitigation. You only have to go to places like Twin Waters West to see the mounds of dirt that are sitting there that will require significant stormwater mitigation. So, from my perspective, what this report asks for is a very narrow set of recommendations, which says that from a council perspective, we will not be funding the activities of this board. And if you look at what money has been levied over the last 15 years, it is obvious that the board is spending money that they have levied previously. And if they wish to undertake further works in this space, then they are more than welcome to continue levying their landowners in that area for their benefit. So I'll be supporting this motion today, because from a financial sustainability perspective and from a responsibility perspective, as a council, it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Suarez, would you like to close?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I wasn't expecting to have to close. I thought it was a pretty straightforward report. But in response to some of the comments made by Councillor Landsberg, I feel the need that I should. This is not about paying an individual invoice. This is about the future maintenance of the South Maroochy drains going on in perpetuity in an ever-changing landscape. This is not about the Blue Heart project, which is just a project. This is about an area that we know and we understand will flood and will increasingly go underwater, whether there's a Blue Heart project there or not. This is not about taking power away from the board. It is actually about empowering the board to raise funds themselves for their own maintenance activities, for private landowners to take care of the land in the way that they see fit. It is not the responsibility of the council to pay individuals invoices. We don't do that anywhere else. Why do we do it here? So, in summary, I think Councillor Landsberg has taken this way off track, and I'd like to bring it back to the focus of what the officer's recommendation is. As I said, this is about collaboration and partnership. The board works in collaboration with the landowners to undertake effective maintenance activities if they are in agreement. It is not council's responsibility to enforce those maintenance activities, and it's not council's onus to pay for them either. So I look for support from my fellow councillors on this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillors Broderick, Burns, Natoli, Johnston, Dixon, Hungerford, Bunnag, Suarez, Law, Mayor Natoli. Those against? Councillor Landsberg. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr Cooney. It might be the last time we see you presenting a report in the chamber, Mr Cooney, but you never know. You probably thought that last time you were here, so I won't say that. We move on now to item 8.6, the Public Flood Mapping Update 2025, and we welcome Mr Newell to present the report. Hello and welcome.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good afternoon to you. The purpose of this report is to present a minor revision of the public flood mapping to Council for endorsement. This slide presents the key mapping updates for this report. The most significant revisions are administrative updates in two of the region's priority development areas, these being Calandra South and the Maroochydore City Centre. Flood mapping of the March 2025 rainfall event from ex-tropical cyclone Alfred will also be included as a new layer. Other minor mapping revisions are included for Battery Hill, Park Lakes 2 in Blvd and the Coolum Industrial Estate. The most significant mapping revision occurs in the Caloundra South Priority Development Area, also known as AURA. The revised flood mapping represents development earthworks changes up to April 2025, supplied to Council by the developer Stockland. The change in flood mapping shown on the slide is supplemented with air photos that reflect the respective development layouts at each point in time. Recent development areas in locations that were subject to flooding prior to development earthworks are often affected by insurance affordability issues. These updates will be made available to the Insurance Council of Australia for their revision of their National Flood Insurance Database. A revised development scheme layout of the Maroochydore City Centre was adopted by Council in March 2024. This adopted layout includes a consolidation of the waterway and parkland areas into a centralised lake and parkland in the heart of the city centre. In March 2025, rainfall from ex-tropical cyclone Alfred caused significant flooding in the hinterland areas of Petrie Creek, Painter Creek, Wurtulla Creek and the Upper Marcoola River. A map has been prepared to show locations estimated to have been affected by creek flooding from this event. The map has been derived using observed levels from Council flood gauges covering the major centres of Nambour, Palmwoods, Wurtulla and Marcoola Valley. For each of these four major centres, March 2025 was the largest or second largest flood on record at the respective flood warning gauges. Flood mitigation works were undertaken at Battery Hill with a new overland flow path constructed in late 2024. The updated mapping incorporates the mitigation works and recent ground survey, resulting in reduced flood levels upstream of Budrum Street. Development earthworks on the fringe of Park Lakes 2 in Blvd have been incorporated into this update of flood mapping. This change in mapping will also assist with insurance affordability. The last of the minor public flood mapping updates is for Coolum Industrial Estate. The flood mapping previously assumed that the estate had been fully developed from a 2012 approval. This has caused confusion with external parties who have contacted Council regarding potential use of the site. Development earthworks have only recently commenced, hence the mapping has been updated to reflect the pre-developed state. The development layout will be incorporated into future mapping updates when earthworks are complete and as constructed survey is available. The development changes shown in this presentation will necessitate updates to several of our regional flood mapping products. This includes the emergency preparedness mapping layers, which are also available on Council's Disaster Hub website, and the land use planning layers. The March 2025 flood event within Petrie, Painter and Wurtulla Creeks and the Upper Marcoola River will also be added to the public flood mapping, meaning that we will have estimated mapping from two recent historic flood events available online, the other event being February 2022. So in conclusion, the recommendations for this report are that Council A, receive and note the report titled Public Flood Mapping Update 2025 and B, endorse the revision to Council's public flood mapping products. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mr Newell. And Councillor Suarez to move and to second. Councillor Broderick, thank you. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think there's too much to say. This is fairly administrative. This is the reason we update our flood mappings is not only because we have to, it's a legislative requirement, but we understand that it's important for people to be able to understand how flooding affects their area and so they can plan and respond. So as Mr Newell has outlined, it's really just minor revisions to the mapping, reflecting development changes, showing flood mitigation works that have occurred, some administrative adjustments, and also showing the effects of recent events such as TC Tropical Cyclone Alfred. And actually having those events mapped is really interesting. The 2022 event that occurred, where we had water in the Blue Heart up to the Sunshine Coast motorway, was considered a flood event that was between a moderate and a major event. So it's not even as big as we can expect in that area. So it's really interesting to get that on record so we can plan for events in the future. Thank you, Mr Newell.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr Newell, for the report and update, and specifically for the new mapping that will be provided for the Petrie Creek and the surrounding creeks in that area following the impact of the Cyclone Alfred, ex-cyclone as it was at the time of the rain event, and the two subsequent rain events that occurred in a period of 46 days that, while it didn't reach those levels, had a dramatic impact on Nambour. So this will be extremely helpful to enable people to prepare and be more resilient for when the next event occurs, whenever that may be, whether that's in 40 years' time or in 4 months' time or whenever. But we know it will happen, it's just a matter of when. This will allow people to be better prepared and recover more rapidly afterwards. And I would just like to thank you, Mr Newell, and the whole team who came along and provided a very detailed presentation to the Nambour community earlier this week, which will enable them to be the best prepared that they can, because we know it will flood again. The town is where it is. It's not about to be moved. We just have to become more resilient. So thank you very much, and I'll be supporting this today.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I just have some questions, actually, so thanks for the presentation. Just in relation to, we spoke about it helps minimise insurance affordability issues when we can change these things. Could you tell us a little bit about the process? So when residents are concerned about the insurance they're being charged, what does that look like when they come to us? How can we help?
Well, thank you for the question, Councillor Broderick, and through you, Madam Mayor. Maybe there might be a multiple-part answer to that question. I suppose the first part is we provide this information to the Insurance Council of Australia. They update their national flood insurance database. From there, I guess we don't know what information insurers will actually use. So we know that some insurers will use information from that database. We don't know how often they will actually update their own information when they access the database. So there's a bit of uncertainty there. And I can give you an example. I've actually spoken to someone this week who had multiple quotes and had some quite inexpensive quotes in Aura, and I believe that was probably due to the database. I guess we also have mapping available online as well, so that information can be used by potential by residents to give to potential insurers. We have provided letters with information that insurers can use as well. So there is a variety of information, but I guess our guidance would be shop around because of the, I guess, different perhaps different investigations that different insurers are doing with respect to potential flood risk.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr Newell, for the report. I've just rise to support the report, obviously, but I just want to touch on Battery Hill and really thank the team. I know it's been quite a drawn-out process. We've obviously had to resume property there. There's been a considerable amount of money that's been spent to upgrade that overland flow. And I know Unity Water increased the pumping capacity of their sewage pump station across the road there, but that still didn't meet some of the future needs. So obviously we look forward to this mapping being shared. I don't think it's going to make too much of a change to the insurance values of those properties. Is that correct?
Councillor Landsberg, yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I couldn't tell you, because they do, Councillor Landsberg, they do get a depth attribute, I suppose, with the mapping. So therefore, and also they get multiple events. So therefore, that would reduce the risk because they're more resilient for a given event. So in theory, yes, their insurance would be reduced. But once again, yeah, we can't talk to how the insurers go through their own processes of providing insurance quotes.
Thank you. That was just a question that I'd sort of received from a resident, so thank you for clarifying that and look forward to supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Johnston.
Madam Mayor, and I'd just like to thank Jeffrey for bringing this to us. My division was significantly impacted in the 25 flood events from basically the first time I've ever seen it, the Steve Irwin Way. There was flooding across the Steve Irwin Way to the east of the BP service station, and that was because of all the rain that had been received up in Diamond Valley in that area, and it just backed up, couldn't get away under the Bruce Highway, etc., etc. And so basically, Glenview, Marcoola, Udlow, Woombye and Palmwoods were all impacted by that flood event, and it's great that we've now got updated flood levels for those people in those areas, and will help us and the community for future events, and deciding where they're going to live, and deciding what sort of buildings they will build, etc., etc. So, and for the council, it will also help us in areas where we want to build roads, infrastructure, etc. So thank you very much, and I look forward to supporting this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Suarez, would you like to close?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, just perhaps in response to a question that Councillor Broderick asked about insurance. This year we had the Australian Coastal Councils Association conference here on the Sunshine Coast, and we had a lady called Kylie McFarland from Insurance Council Australia or something like that, who presented to us, and she gave us some insights, and I specifically asked her about what can residents do to reduce their insurance premiums. And the one thing she said was to have up-to-date and accurate flood mapping. Our council has that, and we can drill down to an individual property level. I think where the disconnect is when, while we have that, there are some insurance companies who still apply insurance premiums based on suburb or postcode rather than individual property. So I would encourage people who are having difficulties to shop around. And Madam Mayor, through you, just with your indulgence, just in response to some comments that Councillor Landsberg made in previous comments about development in those areas, her presentation also addressed some of those issues, which was to reduce pricing for insurance. We must invest in infrastructure where there is flood is predominantly the risk. And current planning laws need to stop development in high-risk areas. And in quotes, I put exactly what she said. If you build in vulnerable areas, it puts vulnerable people in vulnerable situations. And in high to extreme areas of flooding, raising is only a short-term solution. Relocation is the best option. Relocation is confronting, but rescuing is even more confronting. So they're very hard-hitting comments made by Kylie McFarland from the Insurance Council of Australia. And I commend our council for continually undertaking the work to make sure that our flood mapping is responsive to recent events and to current information. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. So thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr Newell. We move on now to item 8.7. Mr Thornton will join us in a moment. We will be taking 8.7, that item, as read. Here's Mr Thornton, who is available if there are any questions. So, councillors, can I have someone move a motion for item 8.7, Audit Committee meeting 23 October 2025, Councillor Broderick, and a seconder, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Tom, for putting this together. And most of what the Audit Committee spoke about this time, we've already spoken about because it was all about the financial reports. So I think we can consider that done. There was just a couple of things in the audit minutes that I just wanted to point out as well from the Audit Committee that I just think it's worth noting, that the committee also thanks the officers and the Queensland Audit Office as well for the work that they have done. So that's been noted in the minutes. They also obviously are aware of the deficiencies or significant deficiencies that we've also spoken about today and how it is that we're going to rectify that. And it was interesting that they put in here, it says the committee also, I'm just going to read this bit. The committee also considers that the remediation of any of these deficiencies will impact not just the finance team, but all parts of council involved in the asset management process. So they recognised that the issues and the significant deficiencies that we've got just isn't a problem for the finance team. This is something that is right across the board that all needs our work and all needs our support. So they recognise that as well. They were also singing the praises of our CFO, Mr Keith Parsons, as well, and his team for the work to date as well. So just wanted to thank you for the work that you've been doing there too. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Councillors, is there anyone else who'd wish to speak on this item? No. Councillor Broderick, would you like to close, or is it all said now? All said there? Okay. Councillors, I will put the motion to the vote then. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We move on now to item 8.8, noting that Mr Thornton is also available for this item. Can I have a mover for this item 8.8? It is the appointment of independent audit committee member, noting that if there is a need to discuss the confidential attachment, we will need to move into a confidential session if anyone wishes to discuss that. So, councillors, can I have a mover for this? Councillor Broderick, and a seconder, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Broderick, over to you.
And Tom, actually I just want to thank Tom for the work that he did in putting this together. We had quite a selection of people to choose from and to interview, so it was a privilege to be part of that interviewing team, that really high calibre, so I'm really happy to make this recommendation with Tom for you today. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Councillors, is there anyone else who wishes to speak today to this item? No. Councillor Broderick, I assume you don't have anything else to close. Okay, I shall put this item to the vote as well. Councillors in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr Thornton.
Committee back up to 3 independent members plus the 2 councillors. So very much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now there are no notices of motion today, councillors, and I'd like to recognise and thank you for that, for making sure that we move through our processes as councillors in a really constructive way in working with the CEO and our executive. Now, I'm deciding on whether we break for lunch now or continue. You want to keep going? Okay, all right. Councillor Broderick, I believe you have a petition to table today. Yeah, we're doing that now. We've got 4 petitions and then the confidential item.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, this is a petition you don't get every day, so it's pretty cool, actually. We, the undersigned, respectfully petition Sunshine Coast Council to reinstate the horse round yard that was taken down in Little Mountain Common in their park area and have horses use the park again, potentially extending to a bigger arena style in the round yard with sand. So this petition has 69 signatures, total of 4 pages, and the lead petitioner is also mentioned here, and they're all signed by hand, not digital. So just to make you aware, there was actually a horse round yard in Little Mountain Common area. It's no longer there.
Councillor
However,
Broderick, if we just wait a moment. So we'll take that you've moved the petition.
let's move it.
A seconder is Councillor Johnston. Now, Councillor Broderick, would you like to speak to the petition?
Yes, thank you. Only a few things to say. Just to say that it used to be there, it's no longer there. They'd like it back, and remediation work in that area has already started to, clean the area up, but they would like a round yard back in there, please. So I'm just going to present this to the CEO, if that's okay.
You might wait for the vote.
Sure.
Yes. Just to be officially following our standing orders and governance, I'll put that motion to the vote to receive the petition. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Now, Councillor Broderick, would you like to present that to the CEO? Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Landsberg, you have a petition as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is a petition from 54 signatories at the Oak Tree Retirement Villages. And they request, obviously, for council to extend the rebates for their actual residents within the village. There's a number of full-time permanent residents within the local community. They're eligible pensioners. They either have a lease or licence agreement that reside in the village, and they're requesting council to acknowledge the pensioner rebate for them.
Okay, Councillor Landsberg's moved that the petition be received and referred to the CEO. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Natoli. Councillor Landsberg, would you like to speak?
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, the residents have made examples of other precedents in other areas, in Cairns Regional Council, Toowoomba Regional Council and Ipswich Council, and also in Tasmania and Victoria, where similar arrangements have been made in these communities, I suppose these residential communities, and that's what they're actually asking for, a reference to that. So,
thank you, Councillor Landsberg. I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. You can take that petition to the CEO. Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Burns, you have a petition to present?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor.
It's only just, it's your turn. Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's
your turn.
Yeah, it is. Good.
We're going around the table.
Petition here, signed 36 signatories. Subject matter is to ensure the safety of those people crossing to Myco's Park, including elderly, disabled people and children opposite the roundabout, located at the intersection of Regatta Blvd and the Dex Road. And it just is requested for those below the undersigned that the council put a zebra crossing or speed limiter to reduce the speed of vehicles entering the roundabout, as it is not safe for those who are crossing at the entry, end and exit of the Regatta Blvd section of the roundabout.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Burns moved the petition be received. Seconded Councillor Natoli. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Councillor Burns, if you'd like to speak.
Yeah, very briefly. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm sure every councillor receives many requests to see speeds limits reduced in their streets around residential areas. This is one such of those. It's really about a safety issue and just seeking council to investigate it. So I recommend this to our council officers for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll now put that motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried. I'm going to do it twice. Thank you, Councillor Burns. You can go to... Yeah, doubly approved now. It's Groundhog Day. Councillor Law, you have a petition as well.
I do. Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I have a petition which has been signed by 381 people in the old-fashioned, old-school way again of signatures on paper. It's a petition in relation to Nambour, and it says, we, the undersigned, respectfully petition Sunshine Council for an urgent review of budget priorities for Nambour on the hinterland. We, the undersigned residents and business owners of Nambour and the surrounding hinterland, respectfully petition Sunshine Coast Council to urgently review and revise the current budget to reflect the commitments made by Council to Nambour. Despite assurances of increased investment and revitalisation, the current budget fails to deliver meaningful support for Nambour, with major projects cut until 2031. Local businesses are under severe economic pressure, and increasing homelessness is compounding issues in our town centre. We call on Council to, number one, honour the commitment to prioritise Nambour and the hinterland revitalisation. Number two, reallocate funding to the Nambour Library Precinct. And number three, invest in the streetscape to support local businesses. A thriving Nambour benefits the entire Sunshine Coast. We urge Council to act now.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillors, Councillor Law has moved the petition be received and referred. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Burns, thank you. And Councillor Law, did you wish to speak to the petition before I put it to the vote?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, briefly. This is a petition that has been created by a business owner of Nambour who set out to talk to the businesses of Nambour to get their support and signatures of the council investing in Nambour and the hinterland. And those conversations led to 221 signatures from business owners and operators in Nambour, which is nearly 50% of the businesses in the CBD at the moment. Obviously, she spoke to residents as well, and there are another 160 residents who have signed this petition. Had she kept on knocking on doors, she would have kept on getting more signatures. But the thought I will leave you with on her behalf, a business owner who's taken a big chunk of her time to do this. A thriving Nambour benefits the entire Sunshine Coast. We urge Council to act now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. I'll now put the motion to the vote to receive the petition and refer it to the CEO. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Law. You can present that to the CEO now. Councillors, before we move into confidential session, do any of you wish to declare any personal interests in relation to item 11.1? Do so now. No. The Chief Executive Officer advises that item 11.1 contains confidential information relating to legal advice obtained by Council. For this reason, it's recommended that Council move into confidential session in accordance with section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to consider and discuss the information in this report. Noting, of course, Council's decision on this item will be made during open session, which will be viewable by the public. Councillors, is someone prepared to move that we close the meeting to discuss agenda item 11.1? Councillor Johnston is the mover and the seconder, Councillor Landsberg. I'll now put that motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay, welcome back. Councillors, we are now at consideration for item 11.1. I note that Councillor Johnston was to move this item and Councillor Dixon to second. That is agreed still, yes? Okay, great. Councillor Johnston, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Keeping in mind the legal situation that we're in at present, I'd like to thank the council officers for their extensive work that has been done in relation to this issue and in recognising circumstances that are now evident. And I am happy. I'd love to say more, but all I can say is that I encourage councillors to support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? No. Councillor Johnston, would you like to close? All done? Okay, I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay. It is Councillors Broderick, Landsberg, Burns, Johnston, Dixon, Hungerford, Bunag, Suarez, Law and Mayor Natoli. Those against? Councillor Natoli. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your work here in this space. Councillors, as there are no further items, thank you, team who are leaving the chamber now. Thank you all. As we have no further items on today's agenda, I note the next ordinary meeting will be held on Thursday, the 11th of December at 9 a.m. So I declare this meeting closed at 1:49. Thank you all.